जी नदीम साहब, this will help you a bit of a practical experience. In 2007, towards the end, I was wearing two hats in the federal government. I was also raising NDMA and I was Prime Minister Inspection Commission head. So one day I get a call from the military secretary to the president that the president would like to discuss the food crisis prevailing at that time. So I thought this guy was a little funny. So I said, look, I don't know how to spell wheat and you want me to handle this situation? Usne kaha, sir, aap is bahas ko chhodein, aa jaएं, and president has some task for you. So I went over and the president discussed the situation. As you know, in 2007-8 beginning, there was shortages of food. So he asked me, Farooq, you have to handle it. So there was a presentation by Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Meher Saab was head of that ministry, and a renowned bureaucrat was the secretary. So in a presentation, one was surprised that there were 2.2 million tons of wheat lying with the government, yet there were shortages, and very proudly the ministry gave the figure of smuggling of wheat to Central Asia, up to Central Asia, of 15 lakh tons. Now I'm trying to make you understand the dynamics, how this happens and why it happens. Now, the question is that why there are two industries which are in excess capacity in Pakistan and much more than what is our requirement. One is wheat, another is sugar. The second question is why most of the owners are politicians. Now, if you understand this, you will understand the dynamics. Now, when you put up a wheat flour mill, a quota is guaranteed to you at the government rate. Now, the millers are supposed to make the flour and अपने जो इलाका है उसके जो retailers हैं वहां तक पहुंचाना उनका बंदोबस्त होता है, and this is to be done within 72 hours of drawing the required quota. Now, here comes another question. What is the dynamics of establishing the wheat crushing or making flour rates per kg? You will be surprised that when I compared the rates at that time, Sindh was the highest, followed by Punjab, and military was the lowest because there are 500,000 men under arms. So उनकी जो wheat है, वो भी तो सालाना ली जाती है और उसको चंद मिलों से क्रश कराया जाता है, आटा बनाया जाता है. So I found a lot of disparity. The fourth aspect is provincial stocks. सिर्फ पंजाब में wheat के stock क्यों maintain किए जाते हैं? And why Sindh and KP and Balochistan never holds the stocks as required? So this is another question which needs to be understood. उसकी reason ये है कि एक तो smuggling के बहुत आसान तरीके हैं अगर आपके पास storage capacity ना हो. So as and when required, you draw the wheat, you take it to the border regions. उसकी मैं बाद में बात करूंगा. And then border regions की जो requirement है, much in excess of that, you issue that to that area, and gradually this is smuggled out to the western borders, through western borders, either to Iran or Afghanistan in Central Asia. So, although the requirement of wheat storage in frontier KP is much smaller, yet they do not have that. So they buy from the Punjab government and never hold the stock. Similarly, Sindh falls short and Balochistan to bilkul hi nahi leta. बॉर्डर रीजन में पहले एब्जॉर्प्शन से पहले होती थी हमारी ये एजेंसीज. इसकी आबादी का सबको पता था कि एक एजेंसी जिसकी लाख आबादी है उसकी इतनी वीट, इतनी शुगर वगैरह वगैरह इसका कोटा बनता है. बट व्हेन आई गॉट इनटू द डिटेल्स आई रियलाइज्ड दैट मच इन एक्सेस ऑफ दैट population the wheat was being supplied to them. Why? The reason was that gradually the stocks built in the border region were smuggled out. Food department, unfortunately, is one of the most corrupt and most inefficient in the provinces as well as in the federation. Annually, stocks are supposed to be turned over and stock taking is carried out, supposed to be, but it is not done, especially in Baluchistan, KP and Sindh. And that's why आपने प्रोग्राम सुने होंगे सिंध में जिसमें तकरीबन 40 लाख बोरियां चोरी हो गई. Now this is a joke. कैसे मुमकिन है? So जब ये सारी चीज सामने रखी तो एक प्रेजेंटेशन थी जिसमें कि फेडरल मिनिस्टर ने ये कहा कि जनाब 15 लाख टन हमारी जो गंदम है वो स्मगल हो गई. सो एक क्वेश्चन उनसे पूछा गया कि 15 लाख टन का मतलब ये है 50,000 ये जो ट्रक हैं बेडफोर्ड के, ये कैसे मुमकिन है कि बॉर्डर से पार चले गए और हमें पता नहीं चला. नाउ हियर कम्स अनदर क्वेश्चन कि जो बॉर्डर की सिक्योरिटी के ऊपर मामूर अफवाज हैं, दैट इज द फ्रंटियर कोर, Baluchistan and Frontier, they do not have the mandate to check smuggling unless specially authorized. So when this thing happened, how was it controlled? And it was controlled within, and situation stabilized. इसके ऊपर मैं मामूल थोड़ी सी 1 मिनट लेके बात करता हूँ. So I asked the president कि सर आप मुझे mandate दें, and mandate में उन्होंने मुझे गजट नोटिफाई किया as Federal Food Commissioner. And all government bodies involved in this respect were supposed to work through me. So next day, happily, Food Ministry sent its additional secretary and the food departments of the provinces sent their additional secretaries as member of my team. So I called ये जो थे All Pakistan Flour Mill Association के 2 सरबराह थे, Sheikh Baradran from Islamabad and Pindi. I found them, these gentlemen understood the point, came up, and they would attend my meeting on daily basis. And we would discuss कि जी आपकी जिम्मेदारी ये है, आप इतनी फ्लावर ड्रॉ करते हैं गवर्नमेंट रेट्स के ऊपर, 72 आवर्स में ये क्यों नहीं आ रहा? Cutting the story short, it was very simple. They would draw mills जो कोटा होते थे, अपने पास रख लेते थे. फूड डिपार्टमेंट वुड नॉट चेक देम कि इन्होंने 72 आवर्स में ये आटा बनाया है या नहीं बनाया. तो गंदम लेते थे गवर्नमेंट रेट के ऊपर, वो बाजार में एक्सेस रेट के ऊपर बेच देते थे या फ्रंटियर की तरफ या बलूचिस्तान की तरफ वो स्मगल हो जाती थी. नाउ आई थ्रेटन टू यूज द सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस एंड आई आल्सो थ्रेटन कि जी मैं आपकी मिल्स जो हैं जो वायलेट करेगा इसको वो मैं बंद कर दूंगा. सो एक्चुअली एक बहुत बड़े पॉलिटिशियन हैं पंजाब से, उनकी एक बड़ी फेमस मिल थी अटक के इलाके में, वो मैंने बंद कर दी. काफी उसके ऊपर शोर शराबा मचा. Anyway, cutting the story short, it was a matter of few weeks when the situation stabilized because All Pakistan Flour Mill Association was on board on daily basis. I also had the media sitting in the meetings and they would cover whatever was discussed and all the stocks on daily basis. Now, the interesting thing is, when situation stabilized, I went back to the president, minister and secretary were there. I said, sir, the situation is stabilized, so I should pack up my bag and do my job. Surprisingly, the minister and the food secretary said, sir, ये जनरल साहब बड़ा अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, इलेक्शन आ रहे हैं, तो कहीं गड़बड़ ना हो जाए, तो इनको कहें कि इलेक्शंस के बाद तक इसको हैंडल करें. So I continued. इस दौरान में गवर्नमेंट ने 4 लाख टन गंदम इंपोर्ट भी कर ली, उसकी जिम्मेदारी भी हमारे सर आ गई. तो पहली दफा जब गवादर पोर्ट में इन्होंने ऑपरेशनलाइज करना था तो एक जहाज 75,000 टन गंदम लेके आया, उसके लिए सारी लॉजिस्टिक गवादर तक प्लान की और ग्रेजुअली वो सारी जो थी गंदम वो पाकिस्तान में हमने डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर दी. फिर भी हमें डी नोटिफाई नहीं किया गया. आई वाज कॉल्ड बाय द एक्टिंग प्राइम मिनिस्टर सोमरो साहब एंड सेड कि जी ये शुगर की बाकी अजनास की भी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, स्मगलिंग हो रही है, कीमतें बढ़ गई हैं, इनको भी हैंडल करें. सो करते करते ये पूरी मेरी जो प्लेट थी इट वाज फिल्ड विद राशन. आई वाज सरप्राइज्ड कि ये जो मंडियां हैं अजनास की, फैसलाबाद, मुल्तान एंड कराची, ये रेट्स जो हैं ये मैनिपुलेट होते हैं यहाँ से. सो वी हैड सर्टेन अरेंजमेंट्स डन टू इंश्योर कि ये ना हो. अल्टीमेटली ये जून आ गया और मुझे डी नोटिफाई नहीं किया जा रहा था जून 2008, तो मैंने अपने आप को डी नोटिफाई कर लिया। सो कहने का मतलब ये है कि इस सारे डायनामिक्स में politicians, because they hold the key to the policy making, as well as they are the owners of sugar and flour mills. They are the major players as and when there is an issue of food shortages. Lastly, you'll be surprised, apart from higher rates given for fetching, they are also allowed to take मैदा और इसका जो भुस होता है, ये ब्रान, वो भी ये यूटिलाइज करते हैं और सिर्फ जो आटा है वो गवर्नमेंट रेट्स के ऊपर दे आर सपोज्ड टू सप्लाई, बाकी सारा इनका प्रॉफिट होता है। थैंक यू वेरी मच। इन केस यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस।
एक छोटा सा सवाल कि ये सब कुछ मार्शल के जमाने में हो रहा था, तो फिर मार्शल लॉ के जमाने में पॉलिटिशियन, ये सब कुछ मार्शल लॉ के जमाने में हो रहा था, तो हैरानगी की बात है कि मार्शल लॉ
2007 एंड सर, इफ यू रिकलेक्ट देयर वाज अ गवर्नमेंट ऑफ प्राइम मिनिस्टर शौकत अजीज, एंड देन अक्टूबर में ये गवर्नमेंट जो थी वो इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट आ गई थी, तो देयर वाज नो मार्शल लॉ एट दैट टाइम।
ठीक है जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच जनरल साहब, दैट इज अ गुड overview. I think it's a very good idea.
This is Dr. Mubarak Ali, ex-member Planning Commission of Pakistan.
एक सेकंड प्लीज, लेट्स डू इट ऑर्डरली। कल बड़ा ऑर्डरली हुआ था, आज भी ऑर्डरली रखें। चले पूछ ले जल्दी से, देन वी हैव टू मूव ऑन। हाँ जी प्लीज, मुझे हर कोई भेज दे प्लीज चैट में जो बोलना चाहता है। जी मुबारक अली साहब बोले। मुबारक अली साहब क्विकली, कैन यू हियर मी? मुबारक अली साहब गायब हो गए,
माइक म्यूट है मुबारक साहब का।
चलिए ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं। जनरल साहब थैंक यू वेरी मच। चले लेट्स मूव ऑन विद आवर एजेंडा देन। एक सेकंड, ये अपना क्या कहते हैं, हिज माइक इज ऑफ बट स्पीकर इज ऑन ना, कि नहीं? एनीवे, आदिल साहब, आदिल मंसूर।
सर मेरा सवाल पूरा नहीं हुआ, अगर आप मुझसे सुन ले 1 मिनट के लिए, क्योंकि ये आदमी चला ना जाए जब जिसने ये प्रेजेंटेशन दी है। हर दफा हम एक्सक्यूज करते हैं स्मगलिंग को। क्या किसी ने ये प्राइस चेक किया कि इंटरनेशनल लेवल पर वीट की प्राइस क्या है और पाकिस्तान में वीट की प्राइस क्या है? नॉर्मली तो जब हम वीट एक्सपोर्ट करने लगते हैं तो हमें सब्सिडी देनी पड़ती है, तो इंटरनेशनल प्राइस ऑलवेज इज हायर, मतलब लोअर देन पाकिस्तान। तो हाउ वी कैन से कि स्मगल हो गई जी इतनी? ये सिंपली लेम एक्सक्यूज है, किसी ने एनालिसिस नहीं किया।
पॉइंट हैज बीन मेड मुबारक अली साहब, पॉइंट हैज बीन मेड। ठीक है जी, चलें जी आदिल मंसूर साहब, लेट्स go and start presenting main presentation. जी आदिल साहब has done a very good job. Adil Saab is a PID student as well as the business recorder correspondent. I hate to give business recorder credit, but I will. ये क्या कहते हैं, he's done great work on sugar. So mashallah, he'll make a presentation that will lead us through the whole thing. So Adil, please begin. Floor is yours, Adil. Adil, hello. I think Adil is there.
Switch on your mic. Your mic is off. We can't hear you.
Adil, your mic is off.
Can I be heard? Hello.
Now you can. Now start.
Okay. Ji, so is my presentation visible to everyone?
It is visible. Let's go.
All right. So before we start, I believe that policy debate must not begin with labels such as mafia or rent seekers, but with the examination of the frictions in the regulatory structure that allows such behavior by the market players.
Okay.
Let's start with setting the agenda. First, we need a context as to why the sugar industry has a special set of regulations, unlike other major crops such as rice or cotton. So first, a brief overview of the laws that exist, and then the distortion that have been created over time. We will speak of a few case studies very briefly. Moving on to why retail price of sugar raises such passion compared to other prices of other kitchen essentials. I believe that's a fact. That's the driver over here is the price volatility that we see due to the cyclical nature of the crop and not due to, I'm sorry, and not due to the fact that sugar price has increased by a higher rate compared to other crops. I believe that the inquiry report has discussed at length the cost of production and whether the ex-factory price of the sugar is very high. I think that's a misnomer and a distraction. What we need to focus on why the price of sugar is not market-based, and then the discussion over the off-book sales in the sugar industry and whether that can be estimated by the government beforehand rather than waiting for the crisis to occur. So context setting, unlike other crops, sugarcane is a very high volume crop. So for example, if 1 hectare of a farm produces 2 tons of wheat, same area produces 60 tons of sugarcane. That means the raw material for sugar is not storable. That also means that once the crop has been harvested, it must be processed immediately. That's also a reason why the role of the middleman in this industry is not as much as we see in other crops. Another nature why this crop is unique is due to the fact that it's a 12-month crop, unlike other crops, just 6 months usually. Most importantly, the cyclical nature arises from the fact that while other crops are harvested for 1 season, sugarcane is cropped for at least 3 seasons. That's because the nature of the plant is perennial, which means that once it has been planted, the farmer will harvest at least 3 ratoon crops without having to sow the seeds every season. Because in this case, in the case of this crop, the geography is crucial. That means that mills which are located in regions which produce very high level of sucrose quantity, that basically means the amount of sugar that can, or sugar syrup which can be extracted from 1 unit of sugarcane, the raw material. The consequences of these factors is that because of non-storability, the raw material must be processed soon after harvest. There is no trader's margin so far as the raw material is concerned. Non-transportability, that is a huge factor because transportability means that it's a buyer-driven market. The farmer must sell it to the nearest mill, and most importantly, the climatic resilience. And now it is a counter factor, which means that that while other crops are affected more by the vagaries of the climatic pattern, sugarcane is a resilient crop, so farmers usually treat it as their insurance. Legal framework, we see a colonial overhang in the regulatory structure that governs the sugar sector. First is the Sugarcane Act, which dates back to pre-independence, and then the Factory Control Act. What these laws have basically done is, in order to protect farmer and the value chain, we begin. Let's start with this slide first. So, because of its perennial crop nature, its non-transportability, non-storability, in order to protect the farmer, government introduced mandatory crushing laws. That means that once a crop has been harvested, whatever the demand dynamics or stock position of the output may be in the marketplace, mills must crush the sugarcane that has been harvested. That means this leads to periods of supplies of surplus supply. More importantly, in order to protect the other player in the value chain, which is the miller, so that he has a consistent supply of raw material, the government introduced something called a license charge. A license charge means that in a certain geographic radius, only 1 mill can be set up. Now, mills that have been set up in areas which have very high sucrose recovery are at an inherent advantage. A very recent example or a case study of the distortion that results from this license charge is one of the JK Colony sugarcane plant that was sold to Jahangir Tareen Group in 2017. Now, the Imperial Sugar group had 2 plants, and when that group exited the sugar business, it put both of its plants up for sale. Now, one of the plants, which was now called JK, is located in Khanewal, the area which has a very high sucrose recovery and is very conducive to sugarcane growing, was sold at a price of 4.5 billion. On the other hand, this another plant belonging to the same company still remains unsold after 3 years. Why? Because it's located in Mandi Bahauddin, where high sucrose recovery sugarcane is no longer produced. So the price at which the JK plant was sold essentially is the price of the license to acquire the raw material from that particular region. More importantly, when we spoke of the climatic resilience, which results in, we have the case study of the 2010 flood experience, where it was noticed that while other crops, which are very sensitive, such as cotton and rice, completely failed as a result of the floods, sugarcane was able to stand by. That has remained stuck in farmers' psyche, and as a result, we have seen it has also played into growth in the sugarcane area over the years since 2010. So while we keep talking about how sugarcane has grown at the expense of other crops, there is farm economics at play here. We already spoke of the geographical barriers in terms of license Raj. There is another example of geographical barriers, which is the case of JDW versus Sharif Group, which was taken through the courts in 2016. In 2016, the Sharif Group transferred stealthily 5 of its mills from central Punjab to southern Punjab. Now that transfer was shot down by a court order because players such as Jahangir Tareen, Khusro Bakhtiar, and other mills located in South Punjab went to the court and said that, hey, if more mills get shifted to the southern Punjab region, it will lead to reduction in, ironically, the cotton area, while clearly what they were trying to do was protect their own access to the raw material. Lastly, is the trade barriers on the...
Adil, could you please, sorry to interrupt, could you please recast? Because I think someone interrupted your presentation. Could you just recast? Thank you.
All right, hold on.
Good.
So,
thank you.
yeah. So we were speaking of the license Raj and the geographical barriers, where I spoke about how the JDW Group and other groups in Southern Punjab region took Sharif Group to the court, saying in 2016, when the Sharif Group tried to transfer its mills from Central Punjab to Southern Punjab, ironically claiming that they were trying to protect the cotton area, when essentially what they were effectively trying to do was protect their own access to high quality raw material, which is sugarcane, high sucrose recovery sugarcane. This is grown in the Rahim Ya Khan region and the Dharki region specifically. Now that restriction, by the way, only exists to the extent of Punjab province. More importantly, other regulatory distortions that exist include the trade barriers. There's a 40% import duty on import, which basically means that whenever there's a shortfall in the domestic market, due to whatever reasons, the domestic price witnesses a lot of volatility because there are no price signals from import involved into play. Similarly, the export side is also controlled. Whenever there's a surplus, the milling industry has to try very hard to get special quotas approved. Now, while those special quotas are sometimes demand-driven, but because the government has largely been extremely reactionary in its approach, it announces the quotas late. By that time, so for example, the 2017-2018 case study is very relevant in this particular case, because in 2017-2018, actually since 2016, as you will see on, sorry, I'll have to just forward to this graph to show how the surplus was building up since 2016-2017. Now, surplus had started building up in the domestic industry since 2015. And by 2017, due to bumper crop and the mandatory crushing law, we had an extreme surplus beyond what the the consumption, the demand is in domestic market. Now, while the milling industry had been trying since 2017 to get a quota approved, the government was reactionary. It showed worry about what would happen to the price in the domestic market, and it finally announced a very large quota in late 2017, 2018, which was a 2 million tons quota, because it was the election year. However, by that time, it was too late. Mills had already been delaying payment to the farmers. Farmers were dissuaded. They shifted to the competing crops. And as a result of which, we see a downward shift in the area under sugarcane in the last two seasons of 2019 and 2020. What that did, however, is that because it was an election year and the government needed to offload stocks hurriedly, they announced a big quota and also announced a big subsidy, a rupees 20 billion subsidy, which is frankly, in comparison to the subsidy which was announced by PTI government, is very high. However, once the stock was offloaded, the ECC has been extremely reactionary and slow in stopping that quota. While we will also discuss whether the industry should operate on free trade principles. However, if the purpose is to maintain domestic sufficiency and food security when it comes to white sugar, the signs were visible by April 2019, and BR Research had also covered this in greater detail, where in April 2019 we pointed out that a sugar crisis was on the horizon. The ECC did not stop export up until December. So, and while the subsidy is being criticized and it should be criticized, it is of note that the subsidy expired in June of 2019, but sugar export continued without subsidy between July and December, and somewhere around, I think, 150,000 tons of sugar was exported in the last 6 months. So it's not just subsidy that has led to the shortfall in domestic supply. It's also the other factors at play is, yes, the competitiveness that has increased in the international market due to the currency devaluation, the distortions on import side, because had import been allowed or had import been free, price signals could have been sent to the market very early on, and the price volatility that we have been seeing in the last 7-8 months could have been avoided. I'll now go back to a discussion of sugarcane crop and why, and address the question whether the crop has gained on the expense of cotton specifically. Okay, so first we need to look at the comparative yields of competing crops. Sugarcane is a Kharif season crop. It is grown in the Kharif season, and competing crops include rice, cotton, and maize. And while people may believe that cotton has been declining because sugarcane is profitable, cotton has actually been declining because no research and development or innovation has gone into its seed variety development, which has led to its falling yield. And that falling yield in comparison to other crops has led to, now I'll shift to the next slide, where you will see that it's not just sugarcane which has gained at the expense of cotton. Every crop has gained at the expense of cotton. You see an increase in area of rice, you see a tremendous increase in area under maize, and you also see cyclical increases and decreased shortages in area under sugarcane. A case study of Punjab in this respect is very interesting. Over the last, this is a district-wise analysis or a region-wise analysis of Punjab province, where you see that while people speak of the southern region or the southern Punjab as Pakistan's core cotton belt, between in the last 10 years or over the last decade, district-wise data for 2018-2019 is still not available. So I've used FY17 as a proxy. The area under cotton declined by 26%. So basically, you lost 500,000 hectares under cotton in Punjab. But in percentage terms, maize gained the most, nearly 200%. Rice gained another 100,000 hectares. Sugarcane also gained. But again, just to point out that cotton is declining because of its poor productivity. And while some people may point out that sugarcane has gained area because of the minimum support price, so farmers have better returns, and those better returns allow them to invest more in sugarcane cultivation, it must be remembered that there is no support price on rice or maize, which should dictate that it's not just the support price driving higher sugarcane cultivation, it's also the factors. The water footprint of sugarcane is also pointed out in media a lot, and also in discussions in the academia. And to that extent, we must look at the water footprint of major crops. Now, if you look at this slide over here, I've used acres based on data from Punjab's Agriculture Marketing Institute and Pakistan Agriculture Research Council. And you will notice that while, yes, it is correct that sugarcane and rice are the two very water-intensive crops, the delta is very high. In fact, sugarcane's delta is equal to rice. Because of low area under cultivation, its absolute water consumption is less than half of rice. Now, but if we keep ourselves focused on the delta, and if you look at figure number 2, if everybody can see the slide called Understanding Water Economics of Sugarcane, you will notice that it is price, not the it is price that drives higher profitability. So the per acre revenue that farmers earn from sugarcane is in fact highest compared to other crops. Although if you analyze it, you will see that maize and rice would in fact earn more. But more importantly, people talk about Abiana and why low Abiana or mispricing of irrigation water leads to higher cultivation of sugarcane. Now that's a point that stands true for all crops, not just sugarcane. If you look at revenue per water consumed in cubic inches, because of better pricing, revenue inch per unit of water for sugarcane is highest, except for maize, which is the most profitable crop. And hence we see a growing cultivation of maize also. And the way the poultry industry dynamics are headed right now, probably we will see maize as the leading crop eating into the share of other crops in upcoming season. However, it must be noted that crops such as sugarcane will persist. And as we will also see in the upcoming slides, the area under sugarcane has more or less averaged close to 1 million hectares on pan-Pakistan basis, primarily because other crops such as maize and rice and cotton are extremely stressed by climate. So how we saw in case of maize in the last season, 2019 season, we saw a lot of crop failures in the case of maize also because of high temperatures and climate variability. We have Danish Mustafa as a participant here. I would really like Rafe and Mr. Mustafa to also add some feedback on this discussion if they want to at this point or maybe at a later point.
Good, later. You complete your presentation.
Okay. Again, so now I would like to point out how the sugarcane, how the industry has grown over the last 20 years. And it must be noted here that yes, sugarcane cultivation is a driver, but more than sugarcane cultivation, it is the capacity installed and the expansion in the industry, which is a expansion in capacity which happened around 2005, 2006, which has driven expansion, especially in South Punjab. Now, it must be remembered that while area under sugarcane on pan-Pakistan basis has not inched forward very much, sugarcane has inched forward in southern Punjab a lot. And yes, while climatic resilience and other reasons are also drivers, I would like to point out that there is never one explanation. In 2005-2006, just to set some background, the Control on Industries and Expansion Act in Punjab, which had placed a ban on establishment of new sugar mills since 1999, was suspended for a limited period in which licenses for establishment. May I continue, please? I can hear somebody else in the background. Thanks. Okay, so I'll continue. licenses were issued in 2005-2006 by doling out political patronage. Those licenses was to establish sugar mills, especially in Rahim Yar Khan area, were doled out to specific politicians, which include Jahangir Tareen Saab and Khusro Bakhtiar Saab, and that led to establishment of largest units in southern Punjab. Yes, the reason for those establishments was the high sucrose recovery in that region, but that is also the reason why we see the industry expand so much in the last 10 years. So while number of units did not increase as much during this period, I would like to point out while sugar mills in central Punjab region of Faisalabad were shutting down because sucrose recovery levels in Faisalabad region and central Punjab region were declining. As we also have a farmer over here, Ahmed Hayat Bandara, who would probably contribute more to this discussion, how sugarcane is no longer favorable for central Punjab. So as climatic patterns shift, sugarcane has become favorable in southern Punjab. So while mills in central Punjab have shut down, there have been new mills in southern Punjab have been establishing, and these mills have another largest installed capacities. This is a decade-wise comparison of where the installed capacity stood and how installed capacity also played a role in driving increase in acreage. So back in 2002, Faisalabad had the greatest or the highest installed crushing capacity in Punjab and the highest area under cultivation. Fast forward to 2008-17, and after establishment of new mills through suspension of the establishment and expansion order and granting of licenses to chosen few groups to establish mills in southern Punjab, you see the Bhavalpur division, which includes Rahim Yar Khan, Dera Ghazi Khan, and Bhavalpur districts, increase both in terms of capacity installed and in terms of area under hectares. So the license Raj also plays into this. Why? Because once you grant license to specific people, those people are able to establish mills. And had there been no license Raj, it would be an open market. As many people who may want to establish mills in that region would come in, and that would lead to more competition. Farmers would also gain, and the problem that we face right now that we hear about specific people gaining would not arise. Similarly, had the geographical barrier that was displayed in the JDW versus Sharif Group case, which Sharif Group, by the way, lost, could have avoided the shortfall that we are seeing right now. Again, because JDW was able to avoid Sharif Group's entrance in the southern Punjab region, and because of that, JDW and other groups in southern and in the Bhavalpur region specifically have basically a carte blanche or monopoly on the raw material grown in that region. Now, you will also see that while capacity installed in Faisalabad region stands very high, and that dates back to the 50-60 years when central Punjab, when more and more mills were being established in central Punjab region, by 2018, the capacity utilization level in Faisalabad is less than 50%. Compared to that, average capacity utilization in the southern Punjab Bhavalpur region is more than 100% because mills over there are able to import sugarcane from the neighboring region of Dharki and Sindh, where high sucrose recovery raw material is also grown. So you also need to realize that it is the quality of raw material that drives utilization levels. Now, how support price has also played into this. It is no surprise that Pakistan's agriculture is uncompetitive compared to international markets, and that's not only true in case of sugarcane. In case of white sugar, it is true in almost all cases. But another factor that has played into is a support price mechanism. Now, support price does not exist for any other crop other than sugarcane and wheat. And while I may point out that both wheat and sugarcane have a support pricing mechanism, which is basically supposed to function as a price floor, the government has a procurement role only to the extent of wheat. The government does not procure the raw material in the case of sugarcane. Now, that means that support price has essentially become a notional rate, which means that while the government sets, say, a notional rate of rupees 180 per 40 kgs or per mond of sugarcane, it has no mechanism to enforce it. While it does lead to some, it does drive farmers to increase cultivation area, and there is a need for more statistical research in that respect. But there have been seasons when farmers complain, and millers have privately admitted that when the support price was at 180, they paid as low as 100 rupees or 120 rupees. On the other hand, right now, when there is a shortfall or shortage of raw material, since the last 2 seasons, the FIA inquiry report points out that the sugarcane is being traded at as high as 30% over the support price. So if a notional mechanism of support price cannot be enforced in any manner, is there any point in keeping it around anymore? And you will also see that since PPP government came into power in 2008, we saw a huge surge in support price, a step up every season in support price rate, which basically drove a domestic price higher and higher in subsequent seasons. When the PMLN government came into power, it only increased support price once from 170 to 180 in 2014-2015 season, and since then it never increased it did not increase support price up until 2018. Now, some people comment that this factor has played into, and I'll probably need to set more context here. In 2016-2017, the PMLN government announced a huge subsidy on fertilizer. And because, as I pointed out, that sugarcane is a very resilient crop, farmers, a higher proportion of that subsidy went into cultivation of sugarcane. Now, since there had been no increase in support price, there has been no increase in support price rate for many years at that point, farmers were also hoping for a support price increase in 2017-2018 season. When that increase did not come, farmers were extremely disappointed, and it has been pointed out by many quarters that the PMLN government has paid a steep price for not announcing a support price and not announcing an increase in support price, because the farming community basically penalized it in the elections because its incomes declined as a result. Because while the price of fertilizer may have been low due to subsidy, the cost of other inputs has been rising, as we all understand. But what you also see is the domestic price declining in the last 18 months, and to that extent, in dollar terms, that is effectively a function of the devaluation, that the sudden devaluation that we have seen in rupee, and not a function of falling cost of production. That dollar-based cost of production also played into higher exports in the last season, as I pointed out earlier. While subsidy also has played a role, we saw export of nearly 150,000 tons in the last 6 months without subsidy, because domestic production became so competitive simply due to the factor of depreciation. Yeah. Now to trade controls and the ill-conceived policy of the PMLN government, and not just PMLN government, other governments as well, including the PTIs, which continued the trade control policy. While in order to keep the domestic price under control and stabilized, the PLN government did not announce an increase in the raw material price, because the raw material price plays into the cost of production. In order to deal with the surpluses that were occurring in the domestic market, it kept announcing export quotas. Now, between 2014 and 2017, it announced very, very little quotas, and those quotas were utilized at also a very low rate. By the time we had an extreme surplus in domestic market in 2017-2018, the PMLN government in the election year had no choice, and it ended up announcing a 2 million tons quota, as you see in 2018. And not only did it have to announce a 2 million tons quota, it had to also announce an exorbitant subsidy of 20 billion rupees. Effectively, if you go back and calculate, in that season, Pakistan has paid 25 cents for every $1 earning from sugar exports. Had the market been free and had there been no trade controls, I would like to argue that not only the surpluses could have been managed better, had there been no mandatory crushing, the surpluses would not have been created, and had there been shortfalls, if farmers would have shifted to other crops, those shortfalls could have been managed through imports, because what import does is it sends price signals to the market that lower international commodity or imported sugar is available at lower cost. However,
speed pick up kar le.
Okay. However, I would like to point out that while there have been surpluses and while export has played a major role, there are certain inconsistencies. Now, if the government plans on retaining the export quota, it could have avoided the situation of shortfall that we saw in the last 3 months. Now, this is some calculation that I've done based on State Bank's data. I would just need 5 more minutes over this slide, where I would like to point out that State Bank sugar mills pledged their sugar, their inventory with commercial banks, against which they obtain working capital financing to pay their bills. As of February 2020, 170 billion rupees worth of pledge financing, working capital financing against pledge of sugar stock has been obtained. Now, these are all very generous calculations, and even on the lower side, there should be at least 2.4 million tons of sugar available with the banks only. But if you go back to the season of October 19 and December 19, you see a very interesting situation where the total stock position in the domestic market, which would include stocks pledged to the bank, is lower than just the quantum of stocks pledged with the banks. Now, if hoarding is taking place, this is something the government can very easily manage by just obtaining data from the banks. Why is the government not doing its job? If this data is publicly available to researchers such as myself, greater amount of details with higher degree of certainty should be available, one would argue, to Ministry of Commerce and ECC, which are responsible for maintaining the position of stocks and the regulation of the quota vis-a-vis. Also, may I point out over here, when sugar quota was announced of 1.1 million tons was announced in January 2019 by the PMLN government, when the Finance Minister Asad Umar at that time was heading the ECC, the notification from Ministry of Commerce maintained that the Sugar Advisory Board under Ministry of Commerce will monitor the sugar stock position on weekly basis in the domestic market. While sugar shortfall was looming at least since April 2019, when we pointed this out in the Daily Business Recorder, the ECC failed to do its job. If it had to stop the export of sugar, it should have done it at least by summers of last year, but the export did not stop but the stops only stopped finally by December 2019. There is another discrepancy that we see, which is in the utilization level. While mills in Sindh utilize almost all of the raw material produced in that province, the utilization of sugarcane produced in Punjab is very erratic. Now, this is a question I would like to pose to the millers over here. We have representation from the Punjab Chapter, Mr. Numane Khan is over here. Is if there is mandatory crushing, and if mandatory crushing says that sugar mills must crush all the sugar produced in the farm gate area, why is it that in the last 2 seasons the sugarcane harvested is much higher than sugar crushed by the mills? In fact, in this season, in the last season, mills have not crushed 30% of sugarcane that has been harvested. So while the mandatory crushing law may exist and it may be used by the milling industry to ask for quotas and subsidies from the government, it is really not being enforced. Lastly, there is a discussion of subsidy, and I think we should open the floor to other participants. Mr. Numan Khan and Mr. Nadeemul Haq first before we come down to a discussion of subsidy. But I would just like to add here that subsidy is just a symptom of the problem. The underlying problem are the regulatory distortions. The market is not free, and we have been arguing in BR Research for a very long time that the government needs to set the cane market free. Thank you.
Okay, good job, Adil. Very good job. Achaji, I think this discussion is very well informed. We've got a good thing. So let's begin by calling in other panelists. And I would urge you to, now that we got all the facts on the ground, you don't have to repeat stuff. So let's just focus on your issues. So I'll go up the value chain. Bandara Sahab, can you talk about from the farmer's point of view? You know, ye jo aapne suna hai sab, isme what do you think is the farmer's role and how can we correct it? Are the farmers really getting all the, you know, the support price, and the farmers, the rich farmers are enjoying themselves, and, you know, keh rahe hain ki farmers are the ultimate beneficiaries along with the political mafia?
Thank you very much, Ji.
Bandara Sahab,
could I continue in... Didi?
Bandara Sahab, थोड़ी अपनी introduction भी जरा करा दे साथ ही.
जी, मेरा नाम, I think as a farmer, if I'm going to talk, so I should keep my medium talk in Urdu. So if the participant don't mind. मेरा नाम आमिर भंडारा है जी, और मैं पाकपतन से काश्तकार हूँ. और मेरे इंट्रोडक्शन के साथ तो पॉलिटिशियन भी लिखा हुआ है, बट मैं कोई शुगर मिल या फ्लोर मिल होल्ड नहीं करता. I'm just a farmer. So I agree with. Thank you very much, Adil, for a wonderful presentation. मैं सबसे पहले तो मैं जो farmers के context में मैं बात करता हूँ कि most of the points जो आदिल ने अपनी पहली slide में बताए वो बहुत हद तक correct हैं. Farmers एक farmer की जो typical psyche है वो शायद जो दूसरी society है उससे थोड़ी different है कि मैं तो समझता हूँ कि पानी जो है वो बहुत कीमती है, लेकिन हमारा फार्मर जो कॉमन फार्मर है वो इसको कोई इस नजर से नहीं देखता कि मेरा पानी कल को खत्म हो जाएगा या मुझे कितना एफिशिएंटली इसको यूज करना है. हमारे फार्मर को सिर्फ एक बात समझ आती है कि उसने कितना पैसा लगाना है और कितना पैसा कमाना है अपनी ऑपरेशंस के लिए और अपनी लाइफ के लिए, अपनी फैमिली के लिए. अब उसमें शुगर केन की तरफ जो फार्मर्स हमारे हैं वो यस इट इज करेक्ट कि ये एक तो 2-3 साल की फसल है. अगर अच्छी इकोनॉमी आपको मिल जाती है तो आपको बार बार जो दूसरी फसलों के ऑपरेशंस हैं मैकेनिकल वो नहीं करने पड़ते, और एक ही दफा सो करके तो वो 2-3 साल तक फसल ली जा सकती है. दूसरा इसमें जो सबसे बड़ा उसको बेनिफिट मिलता है वो अपनी प्राइस इंश्योरेंस मिलती है कि अगर 180 भी प्राइस है तो एटलीस्ट कुछ ना कुछ उसको जरूर मिलेगा. सो तीसरी चीज जो आदिल ने बताई कि क्लाइमेट रेजिलिएंट, यस इट इज. जो दूसरी जो फसलें हैं पर्टिकुलरली मेरी जो राइस और व्हीट में मुझे पर्सनल लॉस हुआ पिछले साल हीट वेव की वजह से. इस तरह के जो एक्सट्रीम इवेंट्स आते हैं शुगर केन जो है वो इसमें जरा ज्यादा मजबूती के साथ जो है वो उसको बर्दाश्त कर लेता है. अब इसमें एक और चीज जो फार्मर्स के लिए जो जिस वजह से ये शुगर केन की तरफ जाते हैं वो एक है हमारे यहाँ जो जितने भी शुगर केन के फार्मर्स हैं वो साइड बिजनेस लाइव स्टॉक का करते हैं. तो अगर शुगर केन होता है तो दे सिक्योर अ गुड अमाउंट ऑफ फॉडर फ्रॉम जो शुगर केन का प्लांट होता है, उसके पत्ते वगैरह उसके लिए बड़ी सपोर्टिव होते हैं. अब पंजाब में ये सिचुएशन हुई कि ड्यू टू जिस तरह आदिल ने बताया कि सक्रोज कम होने की वजह से आगे शिफ्ट हो गया, उस वजह से जो है वो हमारे एरियाज में जो शुगर मिल्स थी वो पंजाब में शट डाउन होके साउथ पंजाब की तरफ सेंट्रल से मूव करना शुरू हो गई. तो उससे ये फर्क पड़ा कि जो फार्मर्स थे पहले तो ये कॉटन बेल्ट थी हमारी सेंट्रल पंजाब में, यहाँ पे शुगर मिल्स आई तो ये सारा कन्वर्ट हो गया शुगर की तरफ, क्योंकि शुगर मिल्स भी जो है वो 30-40% फार्मर्स को बहुत ज्यादा सपोर्ट करती हैं इनपुट्स की मद में. वो जो क्योंकि फार्मर्स को जो एक ये भी प्रॉब्लम है कि जो फॉर्मल लेंडिंग है या जो कर्जा है वो बैंक से इतनी आसानी से नहीं मिलता जितना उसको शायद शुगर मिल वाले सपोर्ट कर देते हैं. तो अब चूंकि ये आगे ट्रांसफर हो गई हैं तो यहाँ पे इसका जो शुगर मिल की कोई जो है वो अट्रैक्शन नहीं बाकी बची, اس وجہ سے فارمر جو ہمارے پنجاب کے ایریا کے ہیں وہ ٹرانسفر ہو گئے ہیں دوسری کراپس کی جانب. میں تھوڑا سا پانی کے بارے میں بات کر دوں کہ میں پرسنلی یہ سوچتا ہوں, میں یا 2-4 لوگ اور یہ سوچتے ہوں گے کہ پانی کی جو اکانومکس ہے وہ ہمیں بہت بہتر طور پر سمجھنی پڑے گی. آج نہیں تو کل شاید یہ ضرور ہوگا کہ ہمیں پانی کو بھی پرائس کرنا پڑے گا. اب ایک کوئٹہ میں یا سندھ میں, کراچی میں اگر ایک ٹینکر جو ہے وہ آپ کو تھاؤزنڈز آف حساب میں مل رہا ہوتا ہے, تو میرا جو آبیانہ ہے وہ 200 روپے سے بھی شاید کم ہے ایک سال کا. تو یہ بڑی امپورٹنٹ چیز ہے جو ہمیں سمجھنی ہوگی ان فیوچر آگے بھی, جو پرٹیکولرلی شوگر کین کے فارمرز ہیں. اب شوگر کین کی ایک اور جو ہے جو سبسڈیز یا جو, آئی ایم ناٹ اے ملر اینڈ آئی ایم ناٹ این اکانومسٹ ایز ویل, میں ایک فارمر ہوں تو مجھے سمجھ نہیں آتی کہ جو سبسڈی یا جو کچھ ملرز کو دیا جاتا ہے وہ فارمرز کو کس طرح آگے ڈیلیور ہوتا ہے, کیونکہ فارمرز سے تو جو شوگر بنتی ہے اس سے پہلے گنا خرید لیا جاتا ہے وٹ ایور پرائس. 2017 میں تو شاید وہ جس طرح عادل بتا رہے تھے 16-17 میں تو وہ 100-120 میکسیمم 150 روپے ریٹ تھا, تو جبکہ پروڈکشن کاسٹ اس وقت ہائر تھی. اور اس دفعہ جو ہے وہ آئی تھنک یہ بہت سالوں کے بعد ایک بہتر سال تھا جس میں فارمرز کو کچھ حد تک جو ہے وہ کچھ ارننگ زیادہ ہوئی ہے, کچھ 210, 15, 20 روپے تک ریٹ اس کا پر من رہا ہے. تو یہ جو مجھے یہ سمجھ نہیں آتی کہ فارمرز کو کس طرح سپورٹ کیا جاتا ہے ان ٹرمز آف سبسڈی, کیونکہ ہمیں تو سبسڈی زیادہ سے زیادہ جو فرٹیلائزر ہے اس پہ ملتی ہے, اس کے علاوہ کوئی چیز اور سمجھ نہیں آتی.
ٹھیک ہے جی, بہت بہت شکریہ جی, بہت شکریہ بھنڈارا صاحب. اچھا, پانی کا جو بات آئی ہے, واٹر ہیز بین ڈسکسڈ اینڈ واٹر پرائسنگ. So let me bring in Rafe. Rafe, can you talk about water pricing and to what extent is water pricing, پانی کی قیمت جو سی ہے یہ ڈرائیو کر رہی ہے سسٹم کو یا کہ کچھ اور ڈرائیو کر رہا ہے؟ تو ذرا پانی پہ رافع بات کریں. Rafi, are you here?
We also have Danish Mustafa over here. If you could ask him to join, he is a geographer.
Let me see the Rafi hai ki nahi. Rafi is gone, I think. Okay, okay, Rafi is gone. So, okay, Danish, can you talk about water, please? Danish is a water scholar, King's College mein. Danish, can you hear us, Danish? Danish? I think Danish bhi chala gaya ya Danish hai? Danish,
he is here.
Danish, please introduce yourself. You have the floor. We can hear you. بولیں.
سوال کیا تھا آپ کا؟
میں پوچھ رہا ہوں پانی کا ابھی بات ہوئی ہے نا, اب بھنڈارا صاحب نے بات کی ہے کہ پانی از این امپورٹنٹ کمپوننٹ اور اس کی پرائسنگ جو سی ہے اس کے بارے میں بات کی. اور دوسری چیز یہ ہے, یہ ابھی عادل نے کہا تھا کہ پانی کی قیمت جو سی ڈزنٹ پلے دیٹ سگنیفیکنٹ رول ان دا شوگر انڈسٹری. تو فرام دا پوائنٹ آف ویو آف پانی یہ بتائیں کہ پانی کی جو پرائسنگ ہے یہ شوگر کین انڈسٹری کو کیسے افیکٹ کرتی ہے یا نہیں کرتی, یا واٹ یو تھنک جسٹ دا واٹر ایشو.
سر, جب پرائز کی بات آتی ہے نا تو ہم عموماً جو ہمارے جیسے پڑھے لکھے لوگ ہوتے ہیں جن کو انگریزی بھی آتی ہے, ہم عموماً پیسے کے اوپر چلے جاتے ہیں کہ وہ کتنے روپے پہ مل رہا ہے, کتنے ڈالر پہ مل رہا ہے, اس کو کمپیئر کریں اس کے ساتھ, اس کے ساتھ, اس کے ساتھ, اس کے ساتھ. میں بڑے ادب سے بھنڈارا صاحب کی خدمت میں گزارش کروں گا کہ جو میرا مشاہدہ رہا ہے اپنا پاکستانی کسانوں کا اور واٹر یوزرز کا, سرٹنلی کبیر والا ملتان کے اندر, مجھے ایک فارمر کہتا ہے کہ جی بات سنیں, صبح کے 3 بجے میں جا کے سردیوں میں اپنا کھالے کے اندر بیٹھتا ہوں اور میرے گرد وہ گارا لگا کے پانی ڈائیورٹ کرتا ہے اور ساری رات میں وہاں پہ جاتا ہوں. مجھے ڈر لگتا ہے کہ آ کے سور میرا ٹھیک پاڑ دے گا یا کوئی مسئلہ میں پہ جائے گا. اور اس کے علاوہ ہمارے کوٹے بھی بڑھاتا رہتا ہوں اپنا بڑے زمیندار سے, کبھی وہ دیتے ہیں پانی, کبھی نہیں دیتے ہیں, کبھی ہیڈ کے اوپر لڑائی چل رہی ہے, کبھی کوئی اور چل رہا ہے. تو یہ کہنا کہ ایک چھوٹا زمیندار جو ہے اس کو پانی کی قیمت کا نہیں پتا ہے یا اس کی ویلیو کا نہیں پتا, میرے خیال سے بڑی زیادتی ہے. کیونکہ وہ خاص طور پہ اگر خواتین سے بات کریں جن کا ہارٹیکلچر کے اوپر کام رہتا ہے گھر کے اندر, تو میں نے جو میرا مشاہدہ رہا ہے اس کے اندر تو جس قدر پیشن اور جس قدر غصے اور جس قدر تکلیف کے ساتھ میں نے چھوٹے فارمر سے پانی کے متعلق سنا ہے اور میں نے کوئی مشاہدہ بھی کیا کہ جس طرح سے وہ پانی کو ایکسس کرتے ہیں, تو میری رائے میں ایک بڑی زیادتی ہے کہ جس طرح سے وہ پیسہ نہیں دے پا رہے या पैसे के कॉन्टेक्स्ट नहीं समझ रहे तो वो पानी को वैल्यू नहीं करते। मेरे ख्याल से अगर जिंदगी में किसी चीज को वैल्यू करते हैं तो पानी को करते हैं। एक बात। दूसरी बात ये है जनाब कि वो भंडारा साहब की बात, और उमूमन ये बात सही है कि आबियाना जो आपका है वो अनटेनेबल है, सन 70 से वो फ्रीज हुआ है और वो ज्यादती है। लेकिन साथ ही साथ ये भी है कि आपका जो शुगर केन ग्रो हो रहा है या फॉर दैट मैटर कॉटन जो बन रही है, आपका जो सिस्टम डिजाइन हुआ था सरफेस इरिगेशन सिस्टम, वो डिजाइन हुआ था इसलिए इस असम्पशन के ऊपर कि आपका एक फार्मर एक सीजन के अंदर 1/3 जमीन इस्तेमाल करेगा या दो सीजन के अंदर 2 दफा 1/3 जमीन इस्तेमाल करेगा। मतलब 64% क्रॉपिंग इंटेंसिटी दी है। आज आपकी क्रॉपिंग इंटेंसिटी 100 से 150% तक चल रही है और उसके अंदर अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह आप लोग गन्ना उगा रहे हैं। ये भी है, खुदा की कुदरत है और खुदा की शान है कि ये काम भी चल रहा है। तो अब वो बाकी का पानी कहाँ से आ रहा है, क्योंकि इरिगेशन सिस्टम के तो डिजाइन पैरामीटर्स ही हैं कि वो आपको डिलीवर नहीं कर पा रहे। वो सारा पानी आपका आ रहा है 185 से जो आपकी क्रॉपिंग इंटेंसिटी चल रही है, या 5 का 200 भी पास जो कर लेते हैं, तो वो पानी आ रहा है आपका ग्राउंड वाटर से। अब ग्राउंड वाटर की कहानी भी बड़ी दिलचस्प है। उसके अंदर सिलसिला ये है कि जो ग्राउंड वाटर एक्सेस कर रहे हैं, जिनके पास तो कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए पैसे हैं कि वो सबमर्सिबल लगा सकते हैं, बड़ा ट्यूबवेल लगा सकते हैं, उसके लिए 3 फेज बिजली का कनेक्शन भी ले सकते हैं, तो वो अमूमन छोटे फार्मर जो 12 एकड़ से कम का फार्मर है, उसके इलाके में इतना आसान नहीं होता है कि वो ये काम कर सके।
Danish, can I interject? Danish, I think water पे हम एक और चीज करेंगे अभी। Let's just stay on sugar. Water पे तो बहुत important subject है, but I'll call you again next week inshallah.
आपकी जो शुगर केन कर रहे हैं, जहाँ पे आपका 3 गुना आपका क्रॉप वाटर यूज है उसके अंदर, और फिर आप हाल दुहाई देते हैं कि जनाब हमारे पास पानी नहीं है, वो जी काला बाग डैम बनाओ जी, ये भी करो जी, वो भी करो जी। उस तरह है ना कि आप एक मर्सिडीज में सोकर के मुझे कहेंगे 10 रुपए मुझे जीरो किराया या मैंने सिगरेट पीना है, तो मैं कहूंगा यार अपनी मर्सिडीज तो पहले देखो और तुम मेरे से 10 रुपए मांग रहे हो। तो पानी के हवाले से सबसे बड़ी बात की शुगर की जो भी बात हो रही है बेहद ज्यादा है, बड़ी ज्यादती है। इसके जो अवामिल अभी जिक्र किया, जनरल साहब ने भी जिक्र किया, आदिल ने भी जिक्र किया, भंडारा साहब ने भी इसके मुताबिक बातें की। तो बात तो ये तय है कि ये दिस इज ए वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट एंड ए वेरी मिसयूज ऑफ वाटर, एंड व्हेन यू हैव द काइंड ऑफ मैलनरिशमेंट, एक कमाल की बात है कि आपकी मैलनरिशमेंट इरिगेटेड डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स के अंदर नॉन इरिगेटेड डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स के मुकाबले में ज्यादा है। अब ये पर्वर्सिटी जो है हम बर्दाश्त कर लेते हैं, इस पर्वर्सिटी को हमने नॉर्मलाइज कर दी है,
ठीक है,
और साथ जो बातें हैं वो हो चुकी हैं। अब मैं
ठीक है, we'll do another one on water soon. ठीक है, वाजिद राना साहब आप पानी पे कुछ कहना चाह रहे हैं? पानी पे वाजिद and Rafe, and then we'll move on to other subject, but let's just talk about water and sugar. Water पे I think Rafe, Wajid will do another one. जी बताइए.
Okay, Nadeem, I just want to add what Danish said, that the system was originally designed by the Britishers, say 28%, 56% cropping intensification. But after Tarbela, Mangla, and more availability of water, the crop intensification has increased to 120 to 150%, depending upon different areas. The water pricing does play a role in shifting from cotton to sugarcane, because it is a flat rate in Punjab, and they have increased that after 20 years from almost double the flat rate, whereas it is crop based in Sindh. It is only 14% of your total M&R cost of the irrigation system. Around the world, the experiences are, wherever the pricing is done, it is based on the full recovery of operation and maintenance cost, which means the cost of the entire irrigation staff, plus the maintenance of the system, plus a fraction of the capital cost. The same system was prevalent in Pakistan until 1959, and then they shifted to a uniform system throughout West Pakistan. And I think we need to do a research on this issue also. It's a big issue, water pricing, and we need to sort of move to the modern system rather than sticking to the old system. And the groundwater is not priced at all.
बिल्कुल ठीक है, वाटर पे अब मूव करेंगे हम इंशाल्लाह अगले हफ्ते. Rafe, you want to say something on water quickly, then we move on. We stay on sugar.
Ji, Dr. Saab, thank you so much for the opportunity, and I wanted to acknowledge Adil's comments and presentation and Amir Saab's comments and also Danish's. I just wanted to identify, because I'm an environmental lawyer, I just wanted to identify that the Cleaner Production Institute in Lahore has identified the sugar industry as the highest polluting industry in Pakistan, higher even than the cement industry and the steel furnaces as well. But before I speak about that, I just wanted to point out that one of the byproducts of the sugar industry or is molasses. And over the course of this century, Pakistan has successfully converted that molasses into ethanol and has been increasingly exporting it. So much so that in the mid 1990s, we had maybe 1.5 million liters of ethanol exported, whereas last year we might have had close to 1 billion liters of ethanol exported, totaling a value of 70 billion rupees. There are only 20 ethanol plants attached to the 90 odd sugar mills in Pakistan. And so you also have to factor in this, that there's a huge profit being made on the byproduct of this industry, which should be considered in the overall pricing of things. Furthermore, given just how polluting this industry is to the water table, surely some of these profits that the industry is making, not just through its exports of byproducts such as ethanol, but also through the subsidies it's receiving, should be put towards treating the water in some form or the other. You can't just let these polluters get away with it, not with the profits they're making and the margins they happen to sustain. And this all has to be factored into what we define a market as. Also, all of this ethanol that the ethanol that these ethanol companies are exporting can be used domestically, either in the food industry or as biofuels, to replace some of the oil that we're importing into Pakistan. And the vast potential for this as well, which should also be considered when we talk about the sugar industry. Thank you.
Gee, thank you very much. Very, very good points. I think this is interesting. I didn't realize about the pollution bit. And certainly ethanol had escaped my attention. So I really appreciate that. That's a very good point. अच्छा जी, ये क्या कहते हैं अब जी शरफकंद साहब मेरा ख्याल शुगर डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड से सर देखिए अब तो ये बड़ी अच्छी बातें सामने आ गई हैं. बिफोर आई गो टू द मिलर, लेट मी आस्क द शुगर डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड कि शुगर डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड का इन सारी चीजों पे क्या व्यू है कि मार्केट हमारी खराब है, फार्मर्स को भी एक महदूद किया हुआ है, मिलों को भी महदूद किया हुआ है, एक्सपोर्ट इंपोर्ट का प्रॉब्लम है, पोल्यूशन भी हो रही है, एथेनॉल भी बन रही है, कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा, सब्सिडी भी मिल रही है, सब्सिडी नहीं भी मिल रही. तो शरफन साहब, ये शुगर डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड क्या करती है जी यहाँ? जी शाहिद अफगान साहब.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम.
जी वालेकुम सलाम. शाहिद साहब बताइए, शुगर डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड क्या है और आप लोग क्या करते हो, ये इसके बारे में आपका क्या ख्याल है सबका?
जी बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने मुझे ये मौका दिया. शुगर केन रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड वाज एस्टैब्लिश्ड इन 2014 और इसमें जो हमें फंडिंग मिल रही है वो सेस फंड से आ रही है. तो जो टोटल सेस फंड होता है उसका 10% इज गिवन टू द शुगर बोर्ड, शुगर केन रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड, for facilitation, support and to strengthen the research and development activities on sugar crops. तो इसमें हम लोग, हमारा जो बोर्ड है उसमें बेसिकली तमाम स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं. उसमें शुगर मिल्स के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स भी हैं, उसमें सेक्रेटरी एग्रीकल्चर, सेक्रेटरी फूड और सेक्रेटरी इंडस्ट्रीज भी मेंबर हैं. यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर फैसलाबाद के वाइस चांसलर मेंबर हैं और दोनों डायरेक्टर जनरल एग्रीकल्चर रिसर्च एंड एक्सटेंशन बोथ आर द मेंबर्स ऑफ द बोर्ड. और ये हमारा इसमें
गुजारिश कर दूं शायद साहब, एक छोटी सी गुजारिश कर दूं, मेरे ख्याल पीआईडी भी आपका स्टेक होल्डर, हम भी रिसर्च करते हैं, हमें भी बोर्ड पे डाल दे ताकि कोई.
ठीक है, बहुत अच्छा है.
कंज्यूमर भी होता है, आप स्टेक होल्डर, उसको भी बोर्ड पे.
जी ठीक है, जी बिल्कुल ठीक है. तो इसमें बोर्ड में हमारे पास जो फंडिंग आती है 10% है. इसमें अगर आप ये देखें कि हमारा इसमें जो सबसे जो अहम काम किया है बोर्ड ने वो ये है कि हमारा अनफॉर्चुनेटली पाकिस्तान में is the big industry, and you know that when an industry is small, it can beg or borrow information from others. But when industry is big with world standards, it is a very different matter. And the sugar industry in Pakistan can no longer support luxury of doing little research work relatively in relation to its size. It's a big industry, and it needs a very reasonable amount at its level for R&D activities. اور اب اس میں یہ ہے کہ ہمارے R&D ایکٹیویٹیز سے ہمیں بینیفٹ کیا ہو سکتا ہے. اس میں ہم اچھا ایک فل اسکیل بریڈنگ پروگرام اپنا سٹارٹ کر سکتے ہیں ٹو گیٹ بیٹر ورائٹیز. ہم اپنی ایگرونومک پریکٹسز اس میں بیٹر کر سکتے ہیں. ہمارے جو فرٹیگیشن ہے یعنی فرٹیلائزر اور اریگیشن کا امبیلنس یوز ہے اسے ہم ٹھیک کر سکتے ہیں. اور جو مین پرابلم ہے ہمارا پیسٹ اور انسیکٹ کی انفیسٹیشن کا وہ ہم اس کو بہتر کر سکتے ہیں. اب اس میں آپ کو مثال دوں گا کہ ہمارے جو ٹاپ 10 فیکٹرز ہیں وچ آر بیسیکلی ریڈیوسنگ ییلڈ اینڈ کوالٹی آف شوگر کے. اس میں انسیکٹ پیسٹ ڈیمیج سے 22% ہمارا لاس ہو رہا ہے. پور سائل ٹیکسچرز کی وجہ سے 17% لاس ہے. لیٹ میچورنگ ورائٹیز جو ہم کرش کرتے ہیں اس سے 13% لاس ہے. اسٹیلنگ لاسز جو ہمارے پوسٹ ہارویسٹ لاسز ہیں یعنی تقریباً گنے کو کاٹ کے لوڈ کرنے کے بعد اس کو مل میں سپلائی کرنے کے آن این ایوریج اگر ہم برازیل میں دیکھیں تو 8 hours ہیں صرف, جبکہ پاکستان میں ہم اس پہ 6 days بھی لگا دیتے ہیں. اس سے ہمارا بڑا ہیوج لاس ہے. پھر واٹر سٹریس اگر 20% ہو تو اس سے ہماری 10% ہیٹ ڈکلائن ہو جاتی ہے. امبیلنس فرٹیلائزیشن سے ہمارا 10% لاس ہے. ارلی ہارویسٹنگ اگر میرے جلدی چل جائیں تو پھر ریکوری کا ہمارا لاس زیادہ ہو جاتا ہے. ایکسٹینیس میٹر جو آتا ہے جس میں لیوز ہیں, ٹریش ہے, اس میں ڈیڈ کینس ہیں, اس سے 10% لاس ہے. اور ویڈس کی انفیسٹیشن سے ہمارا 20% لاس ہے. اور سب سے امپورٹنٹ جو ایڈورس کلائمیٹک کنڈیشن جا رہی ہیں کلائمیٹ چینج کی وجہ سے وہ 25% لاس ہے. یہ رپورٹڈ سائنٹیفک ڈیٹا ہے کہ ابھی ملک صاحب کا جو انہوں نے 2018 میں پبلش کیا ہے. تو یہ تو چیزیں تھی فیکٹرز. اب اصل میں ہمارا جو شوگر انڈسٹری کا جو کرائسس چلتا ہے نا وہ یہ کوئی پاکستان میں نہیں ہے اس طرح کی بات. یہ پوری دنیا میں شوگر انڈسٹریز ہائیلی وولاٹائل اینڈ یو مارکیٹ بیسڈ انڈسٹری. اس میں بہت سارے فیکٹرز ہیں. مجھے 30 سال ہو گئے شوگر انڈسٹری میں. میں نے اپنی زندگی میں کوئی ایسے کنٹینیوس 4 یا 5 سال نہیں دیکھے جس میں بڑا اسموتھ کنڈیشنز ہوں which are very beneficial for the farmers, for the industry as well as for the government. تو اس میں یہ بہت زیادہ ایفیکٹس ہیں, فیکٹرز کے بھی ہیں. اس کا کمپٹیشن کاٹن کے ساتھ بھی ہے, پیڈی کے ساتھ بھی ہے. اب فارمر کو ہم فورسفلی کوئی کراپس نہیں لگوا سکتے. فارمر نے اس طرف جانا ہے جہاں پہ اس کو پروفٹ نظر آئے گا یا اس میں اس کو زیادہ کمفرٹ نظر آئے گی یا جہاں اس کو زیادہ رسپیکٹ ملتی ہے. تو اب جب شارٹ سپلائیز کے سیزن ہوتے ہیں اس میں اس کو اچھی پرائس مل جاتی ہے فارمر کو. جب سرپلس پروڈکشن ہو جاتی ہے تو اس میں فارمر کو پرائس اچھی نہیں ملتی. تو اس کے لیے میں نے ابھی ہم لوگ پچھلے سال ارجنٹینا گئے تھے, انٹرنیشنل سوسائٹی آف شوگر کین ٹیکنالوجسٹ کی ہم نے میٹنگ اٹینڈ کی تھی. تو ارجنٹائن نے جو ایک اپنا فارمولا ڈیزائن کیا ہے اس نے اس کو ڈکلیئر کیا ہے شوگر انڈسٹری ایز اے سپر پروٹیکٹڈ انڈسٹری. سپر پروٹیکٹڈ کا انہوں نے یہ فارمولا ڈیزائن کیا ہے کہ وہ جو ٹوٹل مثال کے طور پہ اگر 100 روپے کا جو گنا ہے یا 100 روپے کی جو چینی بنتی ہے, جو انڈسٹری 100 روپے کی چینی بناتی ہے اس میں سے وہ 60 روپے فارمر کو دے دیتے ہیں اور 40 روپے شوگر بیل والے خود اپنے پاس رکھ لیتے ہیں. اچھا, اب اس میں جو کاسٹ آف پروڈکشن ہے وہ سب سے امپورٹنٹ فیکٹر ہے. وہ میں آپ کو ضرور بتانا چاہوں گا کہ ہماری جو کاسٹ آف پروڈکشن ہے وہ بہت زیادہ ہائی ہے. اس کی وجہ یہ ہے کہ ہمارے ہاں بالکل یعنی ہم اس وقت کوئی میکنائزڈ پلانٹیشن اور ہارویسٹنگ نہیں کر رہے. اس میں شوگر ملز کو ایز اے سروس پرووائڈر آنا پڑے گا. شوگر کین ہارویسٹرز اور شوگر کین پلانٹرز لے کر آنے پڑیں گے اسمال لینڈ ہولڈرز کے لیے. جاپان میں بھی یہ ہو رہا ہے, تھائی لینڈ میں بھی یہ ہو رہا ہے, برازیل میں بھی یہ ہو رہا ہے, انڈیا میں بھی یہ ہو رہا ہے. اس سے یہ ہوگا کہ ہماری جو کاسٹ آف پروڈکشن ہے شوگر کین کی جو ایک من کے اوپر تقریباً ہمارے 40 سے 50 روپے فارمرز کے خرچ ہو جاتے ہیں اور وہ ہم 15 سے 20 روپے پہ لے کر آ سکتے ہیں. اور اسی طرح جو پلانٹیشن کی کاسٹ ہے وہ بھی ہم ریڈیوس کر سکتے ہیں. اور اس سے جو سب سے بڑا فائدہ ہوتا ہے میکنائز ہارویسٹنگ کا وہ یہ ہے کہ پاکستان ایوریج جو ریٹون کراپ ہے وہ 1 ریٹون لے رہا ہے. انڈیا میں تقریباً 2 ریٹونز ہیں, تھائی لینڈ میں 3 ریٹونز ہیں, ماریشیس میں, آسٹریلیا میں 4 ریٹونز ہیں, برازیل میں 5 یا 6 ریٹونز کراپس کی وہ لیتے ہیں. اور ریٹون کراپ کا بینیفٹ یہ ہے کہ اس میں جو لینڈ پریپریشن کی کاسٹ ہے, اس میں جو سیڈ کی کاسٹ ہے, اس میں جو لیبر کی کاسٹ ہے وہ مائنس ہو جاتی ہے. اس سے وہ جو کراپ کی جو پرائس ہے وہ بہت کم ہو جاتی ہے اور فارمرز کا پروفٹ اس میں زیادہ بڑھ جاتا ہے. اس کے علاوہ ہمارے ہاں ایک اور جو پرابلم ہے, ہم نے کوئی جو انوویٹیو ٹیکنالوجیز ہیں جیسے GPS ہے یا ڈرونز ہیں یا NIR ہے, نیئر انفرارائڈ ٹیکنالوجیز ہیں, وہ ہمارے ملرز نے بھی کو بھی اڈاپٹ کرنی چاہیے اور فارمرز کو بھی اڈاپٹ کرنی چاہیے. اس کے علاوہ ایک اور جو سب سے امپورٹنٹ جو چیز ہے نا جس پہ ڈسکس ہو رہا ہے وہ یہ ہے کہ شوگر کی جو سیل اور پرچیز پرائس ہے both should be regulated on available scientific data. اس میں یہ نہیں ہے کہ ایک چیز کو آپ ریگولیٹ کر دیں دوسری چیز کو آپ ریگولیٹ نہ کریں. اور اس کے سب سے امپورٹنٹ ہے اب برازیل $3 ارب کی $3 بلین کی سبسڈی دے رہا ہے थाईलैंड जो है 1.5 बिलियन की सब्सिडी दे रहा है, अपने फार्मर्स को भी दे रहा है, इंडस्ट्री को भी दे रहा है। और हमारा जो सेस फंड है वो इसका तकरीबन जो है वो 4.5 से 5 बिलियन बनता है। और मेरा मशवरा ये है कि हमें ये सारा जो सेस फंड है ये फार्मर्स के लिए और इंडस्ट्री के लिए इसको हमें यूटिलाइज करना चाहिए R&D की एक्टिविटीज के लिए। तो इसमें एक और जो चीज़ है, इसमें एक और जो इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है वो ये है कि हमारा इस वक्त सबसे जो अहम ज़रूरत है वो फुल स्केल ब्रीडिंग प्रोग्राम स्टार्ट करने की ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि हम जो शुगर केन, ये वाहिद क्रॉप है शुगर केन, कॉटन में भी शुगर ब्रीडिंग हो रही है, वीट क्रॉप के भी ब्रीडिंग स्टेशंस हैं, पैडी, ऑयल सीड्स, तमाम क्रॉप्स की फुल स्केल ब्रीडिंग प्रोग्राम पाकिस्तान में चल रहे हैं। लेकिन इतनी बड़ी इंडस्ट्री होने के बावजूद पाकिस्तान में शुगर केन का कोई ब्रीडिंग प्रोग्राम अभी तक इनिशिएट नहीं किया गया। बोर्ड की तरफ से एफर्ट्स हो रही हैं, हम लोगों ने ट्रस्ट एग्रीमेंट किए हैं, ब्राज़ील के साथ किए हैं, USA के साथ किए हैं, थाईलैंड, इंडिया, ये जो अपना श्रीलंका है, इनके साथ हमने ट्रस्ट एग्रीमेंट किए हैं।
चलना पड़ेगा क्योंकि बहुत लंबा टॉपिक है आपका, इसके ऊपर हम आप शुगर केन की बातें कर रहे हैं, which is fair enough, which is very valid. मैं अब let me go to Noman Saab. Noman Saab is the manager, or sorry, the owner of Muiz, Al Muiz Sugar Mill. He's one of the sugar producers. He's also the chairman of Pakistan Punjab Sugar Mills Association. तो अब
जी बिल्कुल ठीक है।
नोमान साहब,
ये नोमान साहब हमारे बोर्ड के चेयरमैन भी रहे हैं और बोर्ड को सक्सेसफुल और इफेक्टिव बनाने में इन्होंने बहुत अच्छा रोल अदा किया है।
नोमान साहब आइए। नोमान साहब, बड़े सारे चार्जेस हैं आप पे, पॉलिटिकल इंडस्ट्री और ये और वो, जरा प्लीज बताइए कि ये क्या सिचुएशन है। लेट्स हियर व्हाट यू हैव टू से। नोमान साहब, Stanford educated, so we expect a very high level of dialogue from him.
Assalamualaikum ji. I hope I have about 5-10 minutes, like you said, to make a short presentation as well.
Sure, go ahead, start.
Okay, so let me try this.
इनके बाद अब कंपटीशन कमीशन आएंगे, वो इनकी बात करेंगे. So we complete the value chain. जी, बोलिए नोमान सर.
I'm just going to try and see what I can, how I can put that up. I shared the presentation yesterday.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Acha, oh, it's okay. So the only thing is I'm not sure how to put it up from my.
You just go to present now. Just say present now and then you open it out on your screen. आपका जहाँ माइक वाइक नहीं है उसको आप प्रेस करें
जी,
ये आ जाएगी लेफ्ट राइट पे प्रेजेंट नाउ है.
So I did. Okay.
प्रेजेंट नाउ कर. अब अपनी स्लाइड्स पे जाए. Go to your slides now.
Can you see it now?
अपने कंप्यूटर पे स्लाइड खोले ना, अपने कंप्यूटर पे खोले.
जी मैंने खोला था लेकिन sorry about that. Present now your entire screen.
हाँ बस वो कर.
I think Noman, you will have to close your
close
your video. Video बंद करनी पड़ेगी आपको शायद.
No, there's no need for that. Noman, just go ahead and say, it will say share what? Say share all screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
आ जाएगा, करें. आया कि नहीं?
Yeah.
नहीं, हमारे पास नहीं आया. आपको अब आ गया. अब एक दान चलें जी, चलें. Good.
Okay.
I think we have it now.
Great. Thank you for walking me through this. So first time I'm presenting here. Okay, so
now just keep presenting your screen. Don't present anything.
Okay, great.
Keep presenting.
So just quickly, I'll run through some basic data. It's been very helpful that Adil has already pointed that out. I think the first thing that I want to point out is that it's nice to present to a forum which is
I think you've switched off the mic here.
It's nice to have that. I'd like to point out that there's no crisis or shortfall of sugar. Adil regularly engages with me, and he's made a very nice presentation. But I think the one thing that I really disagree with him, because he used the words crisis and shortfall of sugar, and I'll give the numbers very shortly so everyone will be able to see. As of right now, he's already given the background. Just I think one thing that we need to learn on the sugarcane is that the value of the sugarcane that's sold every year is about 300 to 400 billion rupees. So it's a very important crop to the economy of Pakistan. The industry employs about 100,000 people, and indirectly about 1 million households have this as the primary source of their income. So it's important to keep this in mind that, it's when we back the industry, there's, a lot of people that are relying on this primarily for their incomes. In terms of global perspective, the Pakistan sugar industry is 7th in the world when we get to when we're looking at production. It's the 8th largest consumer, and we've been the 7th largest exporter in the world as well in 2018. And our per capita consumption is roughly in line with other countries in our GDP per capita. So nothing special about that. The background to the story that we have here is that we used to be a short country. I'm trying to brush over the stuff that Adil's already covered. And producing surplus.
मैंने कहा जी make it short, बिल्कुल करें.
And then what we see is that we have been producing surplus for the past few years, and these surpluses have resulted in sugar of $2.3 billion being exported over the last 9 years, and this is just sugar, not the overall sugarcane economy, which includes ethanol as well. This has not come at the cost of other crops. Adil says that maize and rice have taken more area from cotton, but I think he was saying that sugarcane is to blame as well. But for the most part, I think sugarcane is a much smaller crop and has not really gained on a net basis over the years, is our view. It compares well with other crops on water. This again has been pointed out. I don't know. There's I think both on the environmental front and the water front, as we saw in the discussion today as well, there is a lot of bashing of the of this particular industry. But I guess that's the general trend. It's okay to bash the sugar industry wherever when something like this comes up. But in terms of water,
Adil, you frozen.
You can't compare to paddy, which is a 4-month crop, and look at just the total consumption of water, whereas the grower will grow something after paddy, right? So we have to look at. We think that's the fair way to look at that. Also, one other way to look at it in terms of trading globally is what is the water required per kg of output, because if you're trading with other countries, and this is one of the key factors that a country like, for example, China also considers in what commodities to import and which agriculture commodities to not import. I was very surprised. I think maybe here I'll cover this and not wait until the end of the presentation. I have a lot of respect for Rafi Alam Saab's work in the environmental domain, and he said that sugar is one of the most polluting industries. I would actually tend to say that it's one of the least polluting industries in Pakistan at the size, scale, revenue, and the agricultural output that it consumes. There is some confusion probably between the ethanol industry. The ethanol is a separate plant. It costs to produce ethanol from sugar industry's byproduct of molasses. The capital expense on such a plant is about the same as setting up a sugar mill. Ethanol has more concerns around this, but sugar industry largely, as he also pointed out, has not had much of an ethanol component in Pakistan until these last 2 decades. So I think sugar needs to be independently looked at, and because it is an independent plant, and some sugar mills have gone further downstream and added ethanol plants, but there's many sugar mills. Most sugar mills actually in Pakistan do not. There are 89 sugar mills, and about 15 perhaps ethanol plants attached to or owned by sugar mills companies, and there are about 5 that are independent as well. So I would request to always look at it separately from the other industry. If anything, the sugar plant itself is hardly consumes any water, or it has any other negative impacts on the environment around it. I think that's enough on that front. We are, because of the surpluses that we've produced, and not all of the export in the last 8 years has been with subsidies, and I'd like to focus on some of the reasons, because this presentation is a general presentation on what we do and what our industry does. But I'll quickly cover something that's not here on the graph, but it's important to understand, and that the export subsidy that we keep talking about, only the governments, we've been very competitive in the global landscape. We've improved our competitiveness. Maybe I'll just go over that and then come back to this. So we are an important part of the export sector of Pakistan, as the numbers that I've put up. Ethanol is an important part of it because it is made, even though it is a downstream industry, I'm saying that it's an independent industry, but the sugarcane economy, it depends entirely on the sugarcane economy to produce the ethanol in Pakistan. Other countries, they have other raw materials, but in Pakistan, they don't. So now the depreciation of rupee has also made us a bit more competitive. I put up a chart of the monthly international white sugar price just to give an idea of the fact that it was this last part where we asked for a subsidy or were given a subsidy by the government has been because the international white sugar market, unfortunately, was at a big low. Otherwise, if you look at the trend over 15 years or so, we're with the current depreciation, we're in fact not that unviable, and therefore I will argue towards the end of this presentation that we should be deregulated, and we'd be happy to do that. And if there was no support price for sugarcane, we would have no justification for asking for any sort of subsidy now or in the future. Even though all the subsidies that the sugar industry has gotten, particularly the last one that we've been talking about and it's being talked about in the media, the 3 billion rupees, that resulted in exports of over 50 billion rupees. It has not caused any shortfall or crisis in this market. It's only meant that the sugar, which was at one point trading, so when this decision was made, the price of sugar was equal to the roughly the cost of just the sugar cane. So there were no, after paying for sales tax, there was nothing other than sugar cane that could be paid from that price of sugar. So it's returned to a reasonable level, a level which, because this whole talk of the crisis is because of a committee report that has come out. That committee report also recognizes that the cost of sugar currently is somewhere between it's between 72 to about 83 rupees as per the two estimates that they've given, and currently the ex-mill market price inclusive of tax is about 74-75 rupees. So there's I don't know where the concern about prices or quantity of sugar available in the country is coming from. And I'll look at the balance in a couple of more slides, so you'll be able to see that there's enough sugar in the country for 2020, even without the COVID, which might cause the consumption to go down. So the revolutionary 8 years that we are talking about was the one that in 16-17 we had the highest productivity. It was a revolution in productivity for which our research institutes and our farmers all get a lot of credit. The sugar industries work with them, often offering interest-free credit. Our estimate is that the sugar industry currently gives interest-free credit of over 5 billion rupees to Pakistan's farmers. As you can see, the numbers in green give the whole story. In these 8 years, area went up only by 30%, and this was roughly the peak area as well. Maybe 17-18 was the highest, close to 1.275 million hectares. Sugar production went up by 125%. So clearly, this was because of better sugar yields, which went, so the sugar tons produced per hectare went up from 3.33 to 5.79. And because the functional mills at least didn't increase a lot in this time, so mill utilization also improved, and that helped improve the economics of the industry a lot. Going forth, we think we're still much behind. We're on a good trend, but we're still much behind other countries like Brazil and Australia. Australia being one of the best sugarcane growing countries in the world. They produce about 13 tons per hectare. We think that we currently have, along with the ethanol that's produced from sugarcane molasses, we currently have about $1 billion.
Finish 5 minutes here, please, quickly.
Sorry?
Manika, try and finish in 5, please.
Will do. Okay. And so we think that there's a lot more potential, and we can, in fact, realize this potential if we were deregulated. What producing surpluses for Pakistan did was that the sugar price actually lagged behind other commodities greatly. It, in fact, if you take the high point of 2010-11, we've really trailed back. And then, so just to put it in context of what's being discussed right now, the sugar retail price has ranged between 50 to 90 rupees, although tax has gone up roughly from about 2 to 3 rupees 10 years ago, now to almost 11 rupees per kg. And nobody seems to talk about it. And the retail price, of course, includes the tax. And as you can see here, we're only coming back to a more average level for the price. So we're, instead of taking credit for the fact that government has brought this out of a crisis, they've decided to handle this politically by saying that no, they have created a crisis, which is in fact not true, even if we don't account for the costing. And the other thing is, if you compare sugar price with either gourd, which is entirely produced from sugarcane. Gold used to be 2/3 of the sugar price. It's gone up. It's now about 150%. Wheat, which used to be about 1/3 of, on a per kg basis, price of sugar is now about 2/3 the price and actually quickly approaching the sugar price itself. I'll skip that slide and just show you that the industry has basically returned to a balanced position. We used to carry over about 3 to 4 months of sugar every year, which used to cause a huge overhang. And industry was, in fact, many people went out of business in these 4 or 5 years. And now we're back to where, we start the season with in a more balanced position. And even without the export, we should have effectively no issue, no shortage, but a more balanced situation. I think on the cost, I've already said a little bit. I can skip the slide. But just to show you that at 190 price of sugarcane, with some reasonable margins, a 6 rupee margin for the sugar mills, the price of sugar should, in fact, inclusive of the tax, ex-mill should be around 84 rupees. So that's our point of view. We just don't know how this end up being a crisis. Now, highest GST on sugar, 17%. Lowest price in retail. This is another metric where we'd like to at least point out. Thailand is the second largest sugar exporter in the world, and look at their price. The international wide price of sugar, which gets quoted कि जी हम अगर बाहर से मंगवा लें तो हमारी चीनी 10 रुपए सस्ती हो जाएगी, it fails to account for the taxes. Total taxes on sugar when you buy it at the shop are more than 15 rupees. Our conversion cost is about 12 to 13 rupees. So it's important to point out that the government actually takes more money from the consumer than we do. And so just now, there's been a lot of market disruptions, which are very important to know. We've pointed out to the government because other than what we've talked about, and because that also creates the potential for the market being disrupted or for availability not being there. So because government tends to, despite the cost of sugar that I pointed out, it tends to crack down a lot. Suggested way forward, I'm just on my last couple of slides. One, we think that everything else has low sales tax, all other essentials. We can't see how it's justified for a government to say that this is an essential commodity, even if it goes up by 2 rupees, we're going to have a problem with this. And then they charge just sales tax of about 11 rupees on sugar. So I think it's completely unjustifiable. markup rates on even the report that came out. They said, oh well, when sales tax was finally put on, the sugar price that month didn't move. I mean, that doesn't mean that the government is not charging those 5 rupees extra that they put on. They're clearly being paid to the government. It moved the next month as the sugar worked through the supply chain. Markup rates, well, these are just stuff that we've said. I mean, if the government is so keen, they can keep a strategic reserve of sugar. And we're very keen to actually work out a cost of production model, but because the sugar price was in fact below the cost, every government that engaged with us for the past 3 years, as we went from crisis to crisis, they always backed out once they realized that in fact the cost was higher than the market prevailing price was. So they had no reason to engage us on cost. Last and final one, the rules and regulations, as Adil has already pointed out, are completely archaic. They're from like 70, 80 years ago. And the worst thing about this is that the government implements whatever they want to. That rule, when it was when the minimum price of sugarcane was made, the government used to buy all the sugar or pay for all the sugar produced within 2 days of production, and then in 15 days the grower was paid. Now there is no price for sugar, no support for the price of sugar, other than if you export.
You got your point.
Yeah.
Let's try and move on. Abhi, we've got now that we've gone through the value chain. Let's go to the Competition Commission. So we've got 2 people from the Competition Commission. One is the competition czar himself, Khalid Mirza, who set up the commission and who, mashallah, still is regarded as the best competition man. So Khalid Mirza साहब पहले बोलेंगे, फिर उमर फारूक साहब Competition Commission साहब से, Competition Commission से. तो Khalid Mirza साहब, आपके पास माइक है. बोलिए, Khalid साहब, your floor. Can you unmute your mic, Khalid? Khalid Mirza, you have to go down, unmute your mic. Have you unmuted your?
I think I should be heard now.
You're okay. Boliye.
Yeah, but what you need to do is, these are all very erudite people there. You need to ask me the question, what you want to know, and I'll try to give you the answer.
Very simple. You did a report on the sugar industry in your time, and Competition Commission is working on it too. What we are asking you to speak about the sugar industry is from the point of view of competition. Is it a competitive industry? How can it be made more competitive? Should it be working on market principles? Should it be working under protection? Should the government be giving it all type of protection?
All right. I'll try to answer that. The fact of the matter is that at least when I was there, and this we're talking about 10 years ago, and I think the position still holds, is that this is an industry that is regulated by the government and is regulated in a variety of ways. And it's not quite clear as to when they bring in the regulation and when they let the regulation go. Now, there were at that time, and I think there still are, about 78 sugar mills. And most of these sugar mills are, as it were, licensed to political people. And you find the sugar mills owned by both sides of the house. So it's almost like coffee in Latin America. I mean, it's a very political commodity. Nobody quite knows as to why this is the case, but we do know that because I think it was regulated and overprotected, the profits were quite high, and naturally, political people made the best out of it, and they felt that this is something that they can go in and they can make a lot of money, and that's what they did. Now, the problem from the competition point of view is that it is highly cartelized. We find here that you have all these mills they because of their political status, are able to influence government to do what they want, and at the same time, they, whenever it is necessary, they allocate territories amongst themselves, and they do whatever they wished, as it were, outside the market forces. Now, if it was to be let go, I mean, the basic recommendation that at least I had made some time ago was that let the market forces prevail. I mean, if there is any support for the sugar industry, that should be withdrawn, that people should be allowed to import and export sugar as they wish. People should be allowed to make sugar and not make sugar if they like, and let the market forces prevail. All the government has to do is to maintain a strategic reserve and to buy sugar when there are times when it is aplenty, and to actually bring it into the market when there are shortages. The problem in Pakistan is, and I find this in other countries as well, that people seem to confuse what a commodity crisis is. What is regarded as a commodity crisis is when the prices go up. Well, in fact, that is not the case. A commodity crisis only occurs when there is a scarcity of a commodity. The price has nothing to do with it. The other big confusion here is, and which everybody seems to be focusing on, is the cost of the commodity vis-a-vis its sale price. Now, the two things are not, it's inconsistent to think in those terms. When you talk about the price of making something or the cost of making something, then what you are talking about really is whether you should be in that business or not. It's not that the sale price of that depends on what your cost is. The sale price of that depends on what the market will throw up. It's a question of the demand and supply, and there are and that is what will determine what the price of a commodity is. But the cost of it is what will determine whether the businessman should remain in the business or not.
And he should be allowed.
So we are having you saw this sugar report, which has come out by 3 policemen, I think, who have written that report. And frankly speaking, I don't think they have understood what the problem is. And frankly, I don't know where that problem is.
Thank you, Khalid.
The whole focus seems to be on the price of sugar. Well, if you look at that, the price of sugar, even if it is like 100 rupees, it doesn't really matter. The question is whether the commodity is
can I now bring in the current competition commission? Current competition commission ji, Umar Saab, aap hain yahan?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Saab. And Khalid Mirza Saab has explained very thoroughly in detail. We were recently asked by Ministry of Industry to do the cost audit of sugar. And with me is Mr. Shahzad Hussain, who did the cost audit, and he will share the findings with the panelists here.
Yeah, please.
Can you hear me?
जी जी बिल्कुल बोलिए.
Thank you. Khalid Saab has very rightly, I think, summarized what the Competition Commission of Pakistan thinks about the sugar industry, and the situation is exactly the same what he has already explained. The CCP back in 2009, when Khalid Mirza Saab was the chairman, had made some recommendations regarding the sugar industry. The recommendations are exactly the same even in 2018 and 19. I'm not going to repeat those recommendations. Khalsab has very rightly elaborated all of them. Unfortunately, since 2009, the government has not taken any action on the recommendations made by Competition Commission of Pakistan. We are constantly saying that the industry should be deregulated. It is highly regulated. The mechanism of support price should be abolished. It should be left to the market forces of demand and supply. The provincial governments should definitely review the legislative framework, which is very outdated. And another recommendation which was also made in 2009, and we have also made a recommendation in 2018, that the price of sugarcane should be based on its recovery percentage. That means the sucrose content and not the weight of the sugarcane. That recommendation has still not been implemented. By implementing all these recommendations, which CCP is constantly making, the industry can be allowed to work on the basis of demand and supply forces. And Khalid Mirza Sahab has very rightly said, when you deregulate the industry, the businessman will have to decide whether to stay in the business or leave the business, and the growers will have to decide whether to grow the sugarcane or grow something else. Another thing which CCP recommended in 2009 and 2018 was the efficiency of the sugar plants. Surprisingly, the Punjab government has imposed ban on enlargement and on implementation of new plants. This has basically led to inefficiencies. The CCP, taking notice of this issue, also issued a policy note in 2012 recommending the Punjab government to allow to withdraw that notification and allow enlargement in the capacities and installation of new plants. This will definitely help improve the efficiencies. We again and again are recommending that the market forces should be allowed to prevail. As far as the cost audit is concerned, Khalid Mirza Sahab has very rightly said that the cost is not relevant while determining the price. These are the forces of demand and supply which will determine the price. The report has discussed a bit about it, that when some margin has been added to the cost of production, why the price keeps on changing when the demand or supply situation changes. These are market dynamics. Whenever the demand and supply situation changes, the market price will definitely change.
Okay, Shahzad Sahab, I think you explained the point very well. Now let me just say this, Kiji, it's very clear to me that everybody in the value chain wants an open, deregulated market. मैंने ग्रोवर से लेके पानी से लेके हर जगह यही सुना है, खालिद मिर्जा साहब से भी, नुमान साहब ओनर हैं शुगर मिल के, जो शाहिद खान साहब रिसर्चर है, इनकी वैल्यू चेन के इनके अपने बंदे हैं, इन द सेंस के वो स्टेक होल्डर्स उनके कोई लोग हैं ना, हम लोग तो नहीं हैं। तो ये सब कहते हैं डीरेगुलेट करें। तो मुझे बताएं, यहाँ हमारे पास एक सेक्रेटरी है वाजिद राना साहब, बताइए डीरेगुलेट क्यों नहीं होती ये बात?
सर इसलिए कि हुकूमत जो है, एनीवे सॉरी वाजिद राना
पहले बता देना, मैं एक्स सेक्रेटरी फाइनेंस, माशाल्लाह सेक्रेटरी फाइनेंस साहब उस वक्त इंचार्ज थे कंपटीशन कमीशन के। क्यों वाजिद साहब डीरेगुलेट क्यों नहीं हो सकती ये बात? ये कौन रोकता है? अगर पॉलिटिशियन भी यही कह रहे हैं, जहांगीर तरीन भी यही कह रहे हैं, ये अपने नुमान साहब भी यही कह रहे हैं, पंजाब शुगर मिल के चेयरमैन सब कह रहे हैं, पूरी दुनिया यही कह रही है, कंज्यूमर भी यही कह रहा है, एथेनॉल में पैसे हैं इनके पास, सब चीजें पैसे हैं, तुम क्यों नहीं डीरेगुलेट करते? वाजिद राना साहब बोलेंगे आप? Wajid Sahab, are you going to speak?
I'd like to quickly say something, Ji, if you allow for just half a minute. I think there are more sugarcane growers in the parliament than there are sugar billers. So I think that probably answers the question as to why, because in the first thing, the only thing really that they're regulating anymore is the price of sugarcane. Sugar ki price to wo regulate nahi kar rahe. We've been producing surpluses, they've been going down. So they don't want to stop giving a price for sugarcane.
Nadeem, there has always been a difference in the public position and what they say in the official meetings. In the public, they always say that we should deregulate both the wheat and sugar market. But when it comes to actual decision making, all of them wants government support. And when they want government support, and they can sort of use their political influence. To take the example of, say, a comparable example of wheat. There is a clear commitment by the government of Punjab to deregulate the wheat market under SMART program. Yet, whenever the government of Punjab was approached, there was resistance by all political players. Same is happening in the sugar market. If they really are keen and they are serious in deregulating all these markets, let them work with the government to sort of the deregulation or liberalization of the markets.
मैं आपको छोटा सा सवाल पूछ लूं, आप माशाल्लाह इतनी देर का हुकूमत में रहे, यू नो द गवर्नमेंट वेरी वेल इनसाइड आउट, आपसे बेहतर कोई नहीं जानता। आप मुझे एक बात बताएं कि इसको फिर मैं आपकी बात में बिल्कुल मान जाता हूं कि दोगलापन होता है, ठीक है, ह्यूमन इंटरेस्ट यही है, बट ये बताइए कि कैसे हम इस चीज को तोड़ें, कैसे? मुल्क का इतना नुकसान हो रहा है, 20-30 साल से हो रहा है, आज तो नहीं, आपको भी पता है, मुझे ही पता है, सबको पता है। अब बताइए इसको कैसे हम आगे चलाएं?
देखिए, बात यह है कि फॉर ऑल काइंड ऑफ for the deregulation you require a kind of legislation as well as a policy. Now you take the example of we have been sort of pressing for the autonomy of the State Bank of Pakistan. Whenever it goes for legislation, the same politicians, be they are from the opposition or from the government, they said, how can we give autonomy to the State Bank of Pakistan? Who will run the government? Same is happening in the wheat and this sugar market. So if they're really interested, what they can do is they can formulate or move a private bill. If they are interested to deregulate these two markets, move a private bill both in the provincial legislatures and for the for sugar in the parliament, and they can sort of come up with some a deregulatory regime as it happened in the PTCL cases or telecommunication cases.
चलिए जी, बताइए, फ्लोर इज ओपन, जो बोलना चाहता है या तो चुप करके बोले, एक दूसरे को काटे ना, वरना मुझे बता दे, मैं आपको कॉल कर लूंगा, जैसे आप कहें।
नदीम साहब, मैं कुछ इसके बारे में बताना चाहूंगा कि ये क्यों नहीं हो रहा, अगर आप मुझे थोड़ी सी इजाजत दें।
Warren sir, can we keep the conversation in English because we have somebody requesting that we keep the conversation in English. I think it's somebody who's listening in.
Can I say something, Nadeem साहब?
Please, you go ahead. Your floor.
जी, ये deregulation, even though industry says that they are they are favoring the deregulation, but I don't think they are really competitive enough to afford the deregulation because, number one, their per hectare yield is 20% lower than the world average and maybe 30-40% lower than the high sugar producing country like Brazil. Number two, their recovery rate is also lower than the world average, and if we compare it with the major sugar producing countries, they are not competing with them. Their recovery rate is low. So I think, and the third is, at this point, they are paying, we estimated they are paying about 15% lower price to the farmers than the world average. So if they deregulate it, actually the price will go high, nearer to the world average price of sugarcane. It means they will become even more uncompetitive. So I think the realistic situation is that the sugar industry cannot afford. And thirdly, the international sugar industry is making a lot of byproduct like ethanol and many other things. And Pakistan industry is relatively limited. They do make something, but they are relatively limited in the diversification of the product. So I think in this scenario, it's not really possible that if you open up the market, they will be able to stay. And if you allow, and we know that most of the time for the last 10-15 years, the sugar price remained lower in the international market compared to the domestic market. So they are saying they pay 15% of the wholesale tax or whatever tax they are paying. But what I say, even if you import duties of that amount, the international market will be still more competitive than the domestic market. So I don't think really economically it's viable for the industry to open up the market, even though on all the forums they are saying open up the market, we are in that favor.
Point taken. Anybody else? See, bataiye.
Nadeem,
Yes,
I like
please.
to add something.
Bataiye.
Nadeem, the Numan Saab, the presentation Numan Saab had, he mentioned that the prices in Pakistan are about like probably half of the few countries and less than many other countries. And the GST in Pakistan is high. And that was the number of 2017-18. I fail to understand when you have low prices than international prices, why you needed a subsidy to export this. And then on the same premise, if we can't open up the industry because of XYZ issue mentioned by the previous questioner, why our prices are low? So that's not adding up. There is something missing over there. And the second point I like to take from the Numan Saab presentation, he talked about the water intake and in sugarcane is less than rice and other, and in the industry of producing sugar is less than the other. I mean, why can't everyone who is an expert on water and an expert on environment is not saying this, and a sugar producer there? So we need to find out, Adil, I'll ask Adil that we need to work out that what is the right amount of water we are taking in sugar versus the other crop, maybe paddy and cotton. That's very important. And the third point, which I like to say on this, on the pricing, again coming back to this, that if the price is low in Pakistan because it's not producing the add-on, the ethanol and the byproduct, that's why we are selling only sugar. And other countries where they're producing the add-on, the price of the sugar goes high. So we need to decide upon that. Okay, we need to support this industry over cotton, where cotton you add value and come up with a certain product. And if you produce like cotton worth of $2-3 billion, but what you're exporting is about $12-14 billion. So you're producing sugar of the same amount, but how much you're exporting if you have the potential. So we need to see this from those perspectives. And of course, I'm for opening up the industry from buying up the sugar cane to the selling and value addition. So that's a small intake, but those questions are very important. Someone needs to answer that. Thank you.
नदीम साहब, एक मेरा सवाल है नुमान खान साहब से, if I may.
So, English, please.
Yeah, sure. So the first question that I want to ask is, what is the information basis that feeds into the setting of support prices or indicative prices, and what is the mechanism for it? And the second question is, what is the comparative trend in the cost of producing sugarcane crop and the comparative cost of sugar production itself? So we have a very nice chart of that compares domestic price of sugar with international price. But what about the cost side? Do we have some data sets or some reflection on that from either of the participants, especially Numan Khan Saab? Thank you.
Should I go ahead?
एक सेकंड थोड़े से और सवाल ले फिर देनी चाहिए और कोई anybody else? If not, then I'll.
Could I say something?
जी please.
नदीम साहब, मेरा एक दो सवाल था।
जी बड़े साहब जी।
मैं अब्बास अकबर अली बोल रहा हूँ कराची से। मेरे 2-3 सवाल है। As far as the sugar industry is concerned, I have no stake in sugar industry. I do not trade except I put sugar in my tea. The questions that I have for the audience are two. Why haven't we moved to drip irrigation in the cultivation of sugar? Number one. Number two question is, why are we not developing higher quality seeds? We are still using the seeds about 10, 15, 20 years old, which were evolved. Number two. Number three question is, what about the inputs, the other wastages like bagasse? It has a value. It is converted into electricity. It is sold to the grid. The ash content is also has a value. Also there is a value for even the molasses and conversion into ethanol. So are these all taken into account into the balance sheet and the profit and loss statement in order to reduce the price of sugar or the cost of sugar?
Yes,
And the people who are making sugar, they all have steel plants within their own factories. Are they making profit and loss credits into their balance sheet on account of this? I would like to get answers to these kinds of questions, please.
Good. Anything else?
Dr. Nadeem, I'd like to say just 1 minute if you can give me, please. मैंने कुछ इंटरनेशनल at Geneva जो मैं WTO में देखता था कि ये sugar industry is one exception जो it's all countries almost there's distortion. I think the only two exceptions were Australia and Canada, which have low tariffs. Otherwise, and the worst is the US. Whether when they're signing an FTA or anything, they are always looking for the sugar industry, and also India. India, I think they're estimating something like sugar transfer, sugar industry, etc., about 1.7 billion. In fact, this year, these three countries, Australia, Brazil, they took India to WTO dispute panel. They said you are distorting, you are one of the biggest food producers, you are second largest after Brazil maybe, or the same, and you are distorting the market. So sugar is something, they all try to deregulate, but it's not been easy elsewhere, except for a couple of countries. Okay, thank you. But and just one final word, that it's been a very, very good seminar, webinar.
If I may please ask some questions for Numan.
Okay, go ahead, Sabel.
If Numan could please give the industry's position on the license Raj and special NOC that is required to set up a sugar mill in any particular region. If he could give industry's position on trade controls. And Numan's price graph showed that Pakistan sugar was export competitive by mid-2018. How does the industry justify subsidy in that context? And that one last question about why, if crushing is mandatory, which is what the industry says, why does cane utilization levels in Punjab average around 70-75%?
ठीक है जी, ये बताइए अपना वो क्या कहते हैं खालिद साहब, Khalid Mirza, do you want to say anything? Khalid is not here. Okay, Zubair Faisal Abbasi साहब, आप कुछ कह रहे हैं? Zubair Faisal Abbasi, आप कह रहे थे you wanted to say something? अच्छा,
सर मेरे क्वेश्चंस को आंसर नहीं किया किसी ने भी.
जी जुबैर साहब बोलिए.
Yes, thank you very much. This is really a very nice seminar and it is very educative. My question is to Numan Khan Saab that every industry or every industrialist would like to be efficient and more productive. And what I understand from the talk is that you have to have much better plants, much better technology in Pakistan, both at the production of sugarcane, you have to industrialize your agriculture, and as well as you have to upgrade your production facilities. So my question to Numan Saab is that what actually stops the sugar industry to upgrade the technology, to make themselves technological competent so that the total factor productivity is actually increased and Pakistan becomes more competitive nationally and internationally? That is my question. Thank you very much.
ठीक है जी, अब finally a woman, Ali Shekhar, can you please tell me what you want to ask?
So yeah, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you so much, everyone. This is very interesting and most knowledgeable. So what I'm trying to see is that how is this price setting mechanism done? Like in my theory, I think the cost of production is taken into account, but then again, what I'm hearing, there's a lot of political economy that is not being exposed. There's an issue of smuggling altogether. So I want to know the price setting mechanism. And also I'm unable to understand how this smuggling comes into play. I know that the price in Afghanistan, for example, being offered for sugar is higher, which is why it's being taken place. But why are we not doing the border control? And why can't we reflect those prices across the border here? So a bit of the price setting mechanism and how we can make that better in future. Thank you.
Okay, folks, I think we're done with the questions. So Numan and others, would you like to take 2 minutes each to answer the questions? Numan?
Well, there's like 15 questions that I've noted down, so I'm not sure that I can answer all of them. But I would like if Khalid Mirza Sahab has anything to say, I leave the floor to him before I take off.
Sir, मेरे questions का भी answer
Numan sir,
try to give my answers as well.
Numan, can you come back?
Yes.
You are Stanford educated, a sugar state later. So can you please answer the question now?
Okay, sure. So, look, the first question that I have noted down, it's an extremely important question, which is local price versus international price. Why is our local price, when we compare even with the tax, lowest in that segment that I showed compared to India, Bangladesh, etc. But we say that we're not competitive in the international price. There's a very good question, very great observation, and it's because Brazil accounts for roughly 60 to 70% of the global trade in sugar. And the one country that was not there, and the only country that I have personally found, I haven't looked at all countries in the world, but the only country that I have found which has a lower retail price of sugar than us is Brazil. And Brazil is the one that sets the benchmark on the cost. This will also help me answer the other question where people have asked, whether our mills are, modernized. We have some of the most modern mills in the world. We have some of the most efficient plants in the world. But in order to utilize and reduce the cost, so for example, the ability to export the energy, the government came up with a policy, 8 mills, installed power plants that can export power. And, that also requires a lot of investment. That also requires, roughly 60 to 70% of the cost of establishing a sugar mill. But still, nevertheless, when you add on other revenue streams, you get less volatility in the price of sugar. Even with an ethanol industry, I think that has greatly helped reduce volatility. If somebody did a study of the volatility of sugar price in Pakistan, they'd probably see that it has been much less volatile over the last few years. And so our industry has been willing to do it. It has done modernization and diversification, but it still needs a lot of support. For example, Brazil has had an ethanol policy since the 70s. We don't even now have one where we support it locally. It's all being exported, and so there's a lot that needs to be done. Somebody then commented and asked about deregulation, whether we are serious or not. We're serious about this. We've been actually presenting this on record to the Sugar Advisory Board at least for the last 18-20 months, because and this is on record that we've asked them that we need a lot less regulation. Secondly, every time there's a crisis, every time that we need the government to intervene, it's always because it all starts from the sugar cane price. So I don't think there's any record to show that we will have.
सवालों का जवाब दे दें
जी
अकबर अली साहब के सवालों का जवाब भी देते हैं. Very anxious.
जी मैंने स्पेसिफिकली नोट नहीं किया अकबर अली साहब का सवाल. I think he was asking about higher quality seeds, and so part of, I think my graph also showed that we've roughly doubled the productivity per hectare for the sugar industry. So sugar produced per hectare, that has come from both growers practices improving, but also because better varieties have come from our research institutes. And I think we can continue on that trend. We're still we're still below other countries in productivity, but when we compare ourselves with Australia and where sugarcane is grown in Australia, their environment is not very different from ours. In fact, we have a lot more water than they do in Queensland. So Australia can be the best sugarcane growing country in the world with 3 times the productivity of us. I think we can learn from them and improve ourselves as well. So,
do you have any other? अकबर अली साहब, आपका सवाल हो गया?
मेरा सवाल नहीं हुआ
जी, ये अकबर अली साहब का अगर आप इजाजत दें तो मैं जवाब दे देता हूँ.
बताइए, दीजिए.
जी अकबर अली साहब ने 2 क्वेश्चन किए थे. एक उनका क्वेश्चन था कि हाई क्वालिटी सीड हम क्यों नहीं प्रोड्यूस कर रहे या फार्मर्स को क्यों नहीं मिल रहा, और दूसरा क्वेश्चन था मेरा ख्याल है ड्रिप इरिगेशन पे, वो क्यों नहीं हम कर रहे. तो इसमें जो हाई क्वालिटी सीड है वो बेसिकली जिन कंट्रीज का फुल स्केल ब्रीडिंग प्रोग्राम है वो नई वैरायटीज हर साल अपनी इंडस्ट्री को देते हैं। मिसाल के तौर पे ऑस्ट्रेलिया ने अब तक 200 वैरायटी फार्मर्स को दी हैं, ब्राजील में 300 वैरायटीज दे चुके हैं। बदकिस्मती से पाकिस्तान में शुगर केन ब्रीडिंग प्रोग्राम फुल स्केल स्टार्ट ही नहीं किया जा सका। उसकी जब ब्रीडिंग ही नहीं होगी तो उसके लिए उसकी वजह से अच्छी वैरायटीज नहीं आएगी, इसलिए पुरानी वैरायटी चल रही है। इस पे बहुत ज्यादा तवज्जो देने की जरूरत है कि हमें पाकिस्तान में
इस पे शायद से मेरा प्रॉब्लम, एक सेकंड, मेरा प्रॉब्लम ये है कि व्हाई इज इट के ब्रीडिंग प्रोग्राम जो है वो मिलत खुद नहीं शुरू कर रहे हैं, गवर्नमेंट को क्यों शुरू करने की जरूरत है? मिलत करें।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, ये लोग ये
मेरा सर
बहुत जगह ये होता है कि
एक और मैं ऐड करना चाहता हूं कि ये जितना सीड सप्लाई सिस्टम है, आपको पता है शुगर केन में सीड नहीं लगता बल्कि उसका शुगर केन के बड्स लगते हैं। इट्स वेरी हैवी, मतलब फुल ट्रॉली इसके लिए चाहिए होती है सीड के लिए। और इस सीड सप्लाई सिस्टम में शुगर मिल का कोई रोल नहीं है एक्सेप्ट 1 और 2 शुगर मिल जो फार्मर्स को हेल्प कर रही हैं। अदरवाइज इट इज वैरायटी तो मौजूद है हमारे पास अभी भी जो तकरीबन आपको 150 टन पर हेक्टर भी दे सकती हैं, और अब हम सिर्फ 60 टन ले रहे हैं। लेकिन वो वैरायटी फार्मर तक इसलिए नहीं पहुंच रही कि शुगर मिल्स आर नॉट प्लेइंग रोल एंड गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर डजंट हैव द कैपेसिटी टू ब्रिंग
यू एग्रीइंग विद मी? खालिद साहब बोले
नहीं जी, there are lots of things which have been said, but may I say just a few things. We are talking about a commodity that causes diabetes, it causes hypertension, it causes overweight, it causes blood pressure. It should have, in fact, a health warning on every bag of sugar. It's also, it consumes a lot of water in a water scarce country. Okay, so for this kind of a commodity to be protected by allowing no import and allowing export whenever we want to, and giving, well, the subsidies is another question. The fact of the matter is that in Pakistan you do have, I can think of at least 2 sugar mills that are probably world class, and notwithstanding the fact that they get whatever quality of cane they get, but they are able to produce sugar in a very efficient manner, and also produce a lot of byproducts. I'm not saying they produce all the byproducts that are possible, because in countries like Jamaica, or somebody mentioned Brazil, actually the byproducts become the real products and sugar becomes the byproduct. Now, so there you have a very, the price goes down because of that. Now, the only way in which we can get rid of the inefficient mills, the politically fostered mills on us, and let the efficient ones remain, is that if we allow the forces of competition to prevail both in the local market and vis-a-vis the international market. Now, we are not doing that. And then my colleagues from the Competition Commission mentioned, which I mentioned in my report in 2009, the importance of buying cane on the basis of sucrose content rather than weight is where the real problem begins, because that is where the exploitation of the farmer starts, when they delay the purchases in order that it dries up, and then they have for the same weight they get a lot more sugar. There is a bit of play. Now, obviously, every businessman will use whatever is the situation in front of him and utilize it to best advantage. So we have got to take all these things into account, and frankly speaking, the more one thinks about it, and whether the government has the guts to do it or not, but you have to free up the purchase of cane. You have to free up the sale of sugar. Who wants to make sugar and can make it efficiently and competitively, fine. If they want to go, if they can't, then they should go down the drain, and the capital be freed up to be invested elsewhere. What is the real problem here is that you have a highly protected and vicariously regulated commodity that can be exploited. But that said, the fact of the matter is that notwithstanding all these things, there are industries, there are units which are producing sugar very efficiently. And the only way that we can get to that point is if we were to allow the forces of the market to prevail. The other way is that you can do what India is doing, which is control everything from the commanding heights, which is fine, which is the other way to go. But then you must have people there that are really commercial in the making of sugar, and not there which are like the old Mughal Jagirs, just hitting, as it were, a windfall or a doing nothing. So you have to appreciate that in Pakistan, you have to allow free movement of sugar, no intervention, demand and supply linkages. You have to allow the free import and export of sugar. There should be no licensing on capacity. Allow the exit of mills in the event of failure, and come down hard, importantly, on cartelization. Because that is another problem. Very recently, at the end of last year, the Sugar Mills Association.
Sir, nobody has answered.
This is Moin Bartley. Could I say something?
Drip irrigation.
Can I say something?
It's time to end. Bandara Saab.
About drip irrigation.
I'll try to conclude in a minute. The gentlemen were asking about drip irrigation and the smart agriculture technologies. I would like to add here that instead of looking at the government, the millers actually need to come forward and help farmers to be smart. If we need to make this sector very efficient, it will include new breeds, it will include mechanization, drip irrigation as well. And another thing I would like to suggest to Noman Sahab, who was saying that there are more growers in the parliament than the millers. It is true. But please check that how many are the practical farmers in the assemblies, and how many know about the problems of the real farmer who, like Danish Mustafa was saying, that at 3 a.m. in the morning, who was flowing the water in the field. And all the political parties need to come forward and present something in the assemblies to make this sector very, very efficient. Thank you very much.
We had a very good webinar. So inshallah we'll do another one soon. I think on water, I think इसकी conclusion सबकी agreement है, बहुत सख्त agreement है कि market खोल दी जाए, deregulate कर दिया जाए. अब unfortunately मुसीबत ये है कि ये हमारे पास कोई तरीका नहीं policy maker के पास पहुंचने का. और मीडिया में, बोल दो मीडिया वाले कुछ लोग यहाँ बैठे हैं, पर मीडिया में वो बुला लेते हैं politicians को, और experts भी आते हैं, तो वो इधर उधर cost of production मैं तो measure नहीं करना चाहता, ना मैं price measure करना चाहता, ना मैं कुछ, ना मेरा ये काम है. काम सिर्फ ये मार्केट को डीरेगुलेट करे. ये कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन की लड़ाई होती रहेगी, यूजलेस लड़ाई होती रहेगी. ये बिलर्स ये करे वो करे, भाई क्यों करे? उन्होंने प्रॉफिट बनाना है, करे, मैंने तो नहीं बनाना है यार. तो सिंपल सी बात है, मीडिया भी थोड़ा जाग जाए तो माशाल्लाह ठीक हो जाएगा. बट इंशाल्लाह we'll continue, PID will continue to do more of these. Enjoy. Thank you folks, thanks for contributing. Bye bye.
Thank you, bye.